Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet.
Gunsmoke. The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
2 hours of tales intended to keep you in suspense. We're going to hear from Dane Clark, Jack Benny, David Niven, John Dehner, and Isa Ashdown. That'll all be coming up here during this hour. We'll cap it all off with an hour of Claudia, or an episode of Claudia. That's all coming up on this Friday, the 5th day of April, 96th day of the year, 270 days remaining. St. Patrick returned to Ireland on this date in 456 as a missionary bishop. In Virginia in 1614, Native American Pocahontas married English colonist John Rolfe. The Mayflower set sail from Plymouth on a return trip to Great Britain in 1621. President Washington vetoed a bill designed to apportion representatives among the states in 1792, the first time the presidential veto had been used in the U.S. Firestone Tire and Rubber Company began production of balloon tires in 1923. A fire in a hospital in Effingham, Illinois, killed 77 people on this date in 1949, and that resulted in nationwide fire code improvements. Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, sentenced to death on this date in 1951 for performing espionage for the Soviet Union. In 1955, Winston Churchill resigned as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, among indications of failing health. 1978, a 5-episode run of Spider-Man premiered on this night.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bud, he's got radioactive blood. Can he swing from a thread? Take a look overhead. Hey there goes the Spider-Man. In the chill of night, at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, he arrives just in time. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Wealth and fame, he's ignored. Action is his reward to him. Life is the great big bang. Wherever there's a hang, you'll find a Spider-Man.
Probably the only thing that any of the reviewers liked out of that episode, that run of Spider-Man. Nicholas Hammond portrayed Spidey. The show almost universally panned, that despite pretty good ratings. Not even Stan Lee liked it. Only 13 episodes aired before it was canceled. In 1980, Cubans fled into a number of international embassies in Havana. President Carter would speak to Cubans.
Our heart goes out to the almost 10,000 freedom-loving Cubans who entered a temporarily opened gate at the Peruvian embassy just within this week.
Now, Cubans took that statement as a sign to flee to the U.S. Hundreds of thousands took any boats available to flee to Florida in the Mariel boat lift. It was estimated the number that reached the U.S. in excess of 125,000. Those statements, much like Joe Biden talking about how poor the people of South America have it, and of course, those people flood the U.S. border. That carries on to this date. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar broke the long-standing record for most career points held by Wilt Chamberlain. He broke that record on this date in 1984.
Johnson looking for Kareem. He passes, guarded by Eaton. Kareem goes in. A Skyhawk.
At the time of his retirement, Abdul-Jabbar held the record for most games played by a single player in the NBA. It would later be broken by Robert Parrish. He was also the all-time record holder for most points, over 38,000, most field goals made, almost 16,000, and most minutes played, 57,500. He remained the all-time leader in scoring in the NBA, ranked third all-time in both rebounds and blocks. ABC News anchor Peter Jennings on this date in 2005 informed his viewers he had lung cancer. This was his final broadcast.
Finally, this evening, a brief note about change. Some of you have noticed in the last several days that I was not covering the Pope. While my colleagues at ABC did a superb job, I did think a few times I was missing out. However, as some of you now know, I have learned in the last couple of days that I have lung cancer. Yes, I was a smoker until about 20 years ago, and I was weak, and I smoked over 9/11. But whatever the reason, the news does slow you down a bit. I've been reminding my colleagues today, who have all been incredibly supportive, that almost 10 million Americans are already living with cancer, and I have a lot to learn from them. And living is the key word. The National Cancer Institute says that we are survivors from the moment of diagnosis. I will continue to do the broadcast. On good days, my voice will not always be like this. Certainly, it's been a long time, and I hope it goes without saying that a journalist who doesn't value deeply the audience's loyalty should be in another line of work. To be perfectly honest, I'm a little surprised at the kindness today from so many people. That's not intended as false modesty, but even I was taken aback by how far and how fast news travels. Finally, I wonder if other men and women ask their doctors right away, "Okay, doc, when does the hair go?" At any rate, that's it for now in World News Tonight. Have a good evening. I'm Peter Jennings. Thanks and good night.
Jennings Wood passed away on August 5th of 2005. In 2006, the first case of H5N1 avian flu confirmed in the UK after tests on a dead swan. And H5N1 continues to be a plague to this date. In 2006, Katie Couric announced she would leave the Today Show on NBC to move to the CBS Evening News.
I wanted to tell all of you out there who have watched the show for the past 15 years that after listening to my heart and my gut, two things that have served me pretty well in the past, I've decided I'll be leaving today at the end of May.
Now, Couric would leave CBS in 2011 to move on to ABC News and then Yahoo News and then even do a daytime talk show. In 2009, North Korea launched a controversial rocket. The missile passed over mainland China, prompted an immediate reaction from the UN Security Council, as well as participating states of the six-party talks. 29 coal miners killed on this date in 2010 in an explosion at the Upper Big Branch mine in West Virginia. And in 2018, agents with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement raided a slaughterhouse in Tennessee, detaining nearly 100 undocumented Hispanic workers in one of the largest workplace raids in the history of the United States. And it's amazing that not much has been done since then, and part of that has caused the borders to swell. Passing away on this date in history, General Douglas MacArthur.
Old soldiers never die. They just fade away.
MacArthur passing away in 1964. Also passing away on this date, Brian Dunleavy. Also Howard Hughes, Supreme Court Justice Abe Fortas, who resigned in 1969 over an ethics scandal. Danny and the Juniors lead, Danny Rapp. Nirvana's Kurt Cobain passing away on this date. Poet Allen Ginsberg. Race car driver Lee Petty. Writer Nobel laureate Saul Bellow sees the day. Deborah Lee Scott. Gene Pitney, fine singer. Actor Charlton Heston. And a young man whom we lost far too soon. The very funny John Panette.
No, I'm actually writing a book, Around the World in 80 Buffets. And in my research, I found that there are some foods that shouldn't be all you can eat. Like Chinese food shouldn't be all you can eat because you get hungry again. I don't know what it is. They put something in it. They must. Because I order takeout, they're always real happy. Oh, he's gonna be back. I give that big boy 1 hour. Because you do get hungry again. What is it, too? And you go from full to starving. There's nothing in between. You go from, oh my God, I can't believe I ate all that chow mein. Hey, look, they brought egg rolls. So I went to this Chinese all-you-can-eat buffet, and well, the owner, he got I mean, he was rude, though. He'd come out every hour. Son of a you here. Look, he go again. He started screaming at me. You go now. You here 4 hours. Why you here 4 hours? You not come here anymore. Why you have spare rib? You're so big. Eat vegetable. Eat broccoli. You scare my wife. Love Chinese food shouldn't be all you can eat.
The best 2 minutes you'll spend today. John Panette passing away on this date in 2014. Among those born on this date, the educator Booker T. Washington, the fine actor Spencer Tracy, monologist Lord Buckley, actress Bette Davis, Gregory Peck from Roots, the writer Arthur Haley, also singer Gail Storm, from the Platters, Tony Williams, the wonderful impressionist Frank Gorshin. We only knew him as the Riddler for so long, but he was a wonderful impressionist. And jazz saxophonist Stanley Turrentine, all born on this date in history.
Hi, this is Jeff Foxworthy. It is now time for the birthday announcements. The following people are now officially older than dirt.
Film director Roger Corman turns 98 today. Wojo and Barney Miller still with us. Max Gale is 81. Wrestler turned fitness guru Diamond Dallas Page is 68. His yoga has done wonders for a number of people. Judge Greg Mathis is 64. Paula Cole, her big hit, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? Paula Cole, 56 today. He's Happy Farrell Williams, 51. The daughter of Ric Flair, wrestler Charlotte Flair, is 38. And the son of Rey Mysterio Jr., wrestler Dominic Mysterio. Dom the Con is what they call him. He's 27 today. Those some of the people who celebrate the 5th day of April is their birthday. And if this is your birthday...
Hi, we're the 4 freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
4, count 'em, 4 episodes of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense. Coming up next, we start off 79 years ago with Dane Clark in A Guy Gets Lonely. That's next.
President Biden recently released a massive $6 trillion budget, the largest budget in U.S. history. And guess who pays the bill? That's right, you, the American taxpayer. American citizens and business owners will be paying more taxes. That's a fact. And if you owe back taxes, they will be coming after you to collect payments. In fact, President Biden also hired thousands more IRS agents to go after you. If you got a letter from the IRS and you know you owe back taxes or you haven't filed in years, don't put your head in the sand. Call us today. We've saved our customers millions of tax dollars. One quick, free phone call will show you how we can reduce your past tax bill and save you thousands. Guaranteed, or you pay nothing. Call now.
800-932-1431. 800-932-1431. That's 800-932-1431. Paid for by the Tax Helpline.
Remember the Alamo. Oh, wait, no, that's Texas, not Texas. We go back 79 years for radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense, the first of 4. This is Dane Clark, starring in an episode called A Guy Gets Lonely.
Now, the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California presents...
Suspense. Tonight, Roma Wines bring you the suspenseful play called A Guy Gets Lonely, starring Dane Clark.
Suspense is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you a remarkable tale of suspense.
And with the drama called A Guy Gets Lonely, and with the performance of Mr. Dane Clark as Eddie Lewis, Roma Wines hope indeed to keep you in suspense.
Have you ever been lonely, desperately lonely? Well, there's an emptiness in the pit of your stomach that no food can remove. There's a coldness about people's faces that make you shudder. And you do silly things when you're lonely. Maybe that explains what happened to me. Maybe. Anyhow, I was hanging around the shooting gallery in one of those Broadway penny arcades that night, one of those places where you can play a game of chess, get your fortune told, have 10 shots at Hitler, all 15 cents. And I was alone, as usual, thinking the dull, drab, dreary things a guy thinks about when he's alone. When suddenly an old man standing next to me said,
Well, my aim is not what it used to be. Oh, got a match, my boy?
Match? Oh, sure, here.
Oh, thank you. You haven't by any chance got a cigarette to go with that match, have you, son?
Of course, here, take one.
Oh, thanks again. You know, with cigarettes so scarce nowadays, the only way a gentleman gets a smoke is to buy him himself.
Yep.
Thank you, thank you. What's the matter, kid? You look like your ship came in, only your mother-in-law was aboard.
Oh, nothing.
Oh, come on. Fess up to old Horace. I'm Beatrice Barefax without the girdle.
Well, I'm just fed up with this town, that's all.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with this town, kid. It's like all other towns.
Yeah, except the one you grew up in.
Well, I suppose you're right. You know what you need is a little diversion. Huh? Oh, here, my man.
Yes, sir. Yes,
load
sir.
these guns up again, will you?
Yes, sir. Both guns, chum.
Naturally. You'll try it again, won't you, son?
All right, sir.
Okay.
You know, I think perhaps I've got just the right medicine for your homesickness, young fellow.
Oh, what's that?
A girl.
A girl?
Yes. Don't tell me you've never heard of them. Well, if you haven't, bless me. I don't want to be the one to tell you.
And there we are.
No,
That's it.
that.
Here you are, sir. That'll be $2.
$2?
That's right, chum. There's a war on, in case you haven't heard. Ammunition's kind of hard to get nowadays.
Oh, well, as a matter of fact, it's a little dark in here, and my eyes aren't what they used to be, so perhaps I'll simply forget.
No. Here's the money. Go on. Go ahead, Pop. Shoot.
You wouldn't care to make a small wager on this, would you, my boy? As I say, my eyes...
No, thanks.
Well, as I was saying, son, I have a splendid idea. Now, tomorrow, being the Sabbath, my wife and I are bound for Minnewanka on a peaceful little fishing expedition. If you'd care to accompany us, there is a faint chance, just a faint chance, mind you, that I might round up a beautiful young lady who will make it a foursome.
Well, wouldn't that be too much trouble?
Oh, not at all, son. Meet me here tomorrow at 9. What do you say?
Gee, that's swell, except that...
Except what? Oh, do you mind if I shoot first?
No, go ahead. Except that I've never been fishing before in my life.
Well, don't worry about it.
Hey, your eyes aren't too bad.
With a fish, the big thing is not so much your experience as your bait.
The idea of not being alone again on Sunday is what excited me. I didn't give much thought to the girl until I saw her. If you've ever seen a truly beautiful woman walking toward you, you'll know what I'm talking about. First, you see the tiny gray silhouette in the distance, and then the figure seems to spring to life. Each curve rounds into place, and finally you see the smooth oval face and the long auburn hair dancing in the breeze. And before you know it, you're in a trance, that's all. That must have been what happened to me when I first saw Jolie, because I don't remember much of anything until I heard myself saying, Oh, hey, what's that?
A worm, silly. You can't fish without a worm.
Do I have to?
Well, of course. As captain of this boat, I promise to bring in more fish than Horace. I order you to put that worm on the hook.
No, it shakes.
Rather gracefully, don't you think?
Kind of reminds me of a shimmy queen at a burlesque show. Oh.
There.
Oh.
Now you did it. Easy, wasn't it? Now drop your line in the water.
Okay. Well, where's the fish?
Patience, lad, patience. The fish hadn't had a chance to read your advertisement yet.
Well, if they could only see you, Jorlie, I doubt if they'd bother with my line at all.
Oh, your line isn't bad, Eddie. This is so bad at all.
I guess in the next few hours I told her just about all I could remember about myself, about wanting to be an actor and leaving home and coming to this town and the disappointments and how I decided to go home while I still had some money left. And how lonely I was. How terribly lonely I was. And before she left that night, she wouldn't let me take her home. I made a date for the next night. It's funny how quick you can get to feel that way about somebody when you're lonely. We met in the Astor lobby, and after we talked for a while...
Well, for a slow starter, you certainly poured on in the backstretch.
No, please don't laugh, Jorlie. I'm pretty serious.
About what?
About you.
How about me?
Jorlie, look. I was planning to go home today. I had the ticket in my pocket, and this morning I turned it in.
Oh.
Look, I still want to go home, Jorlie, but I want you to go with me.
You want what?
I want you to marry me. Jorlie?
I heard.
Well?
You want an answer now?
Yes.
It's no, Eddie.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Well, is there somebody else?
No, it isn't that, Eddie. It isn't anything you could possibly imagine. It isn't even that I don't love you, because maybe I do.
Jorlie!
But you see, Eddie, I was going to ask you something tonight, too, and it doesn't stack up very well against what you asked me.
Jorlie, what? What?
Oh, I know it's silly. We've only known each other for 48 hours, and it shouldn't matter, but... Oh, it doesn't matter anyway now.
Jorlie, you've got to tell me.
It's just an old story, Eddie. Such an old story that you probably wouldn't even believe it. That's the trouble.
Look, I believe anything you told me.
It's about my mother out west and how I support her and how she needs an operation, and... I was going to ask you for $1,000.
Is that all?
Well, that's enough.
Oh, Jorlie, why did you put me through such a cold sweat for a little thing like that?
Well, it's pretty complicated,
Oh,
Eddie.
what's complicated about it? Look, Jorlie. Look, here's a ring. It's all I've got right now, but I wish you'd wear it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
An old Samoan chief gave it to me when I was in Tahiti. Go ahead, look inside.
To Eddie Lewis from... ?
Yeah, I had that engraved in it when I got back to the States. I never did know the old guy's name. Will you wear it?
Eddie, I'll meet you here tomorrow for lunch. And if I'm wearing the ring, third finger, left hand, you'll know that I do.
All right. Jorlie.
Yes?
Do you want the money now?
No, Eddie, no. Not now.
The next day I was there waiting for her, way ahead of time again, but this time she was late. After a half hour, I began to get worried. Then I began to get scared. And after a full hour had gone by and she still hadn't shown up, I was half crazy, and then I felt a hand on my arm and a voice speaking over my shoulder.
You, waiting for somebody?
That's right.
A lady?
Yeah, what about it?
Would your name be, Eddie Lewis?
Yes. Say, what do you know about the fact that I'm...
We found your name written in lipstick on the back of a bathroom door up on the 10th floor. After it said Astor Lobby, 1 o'clock. So we, sort of put 2 and 2 together. You see, I'm from headquarters, Eddie.
What?
I'm a detective.
Detective? Listen, if you know anything about Jorlie Andrews, I was supposed to meet her here about an hour ago, and
Would she have been wearing this ring by any chance?
Well, that's right. That's my ring. Where is she?
She's down at the city morgue, Eddie. She's dead.
For Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you as star Mr. Dane Clark. whom you have heard in the first act of A Guy Gets Lonely, a radio play by Don Paul Nathanson, which is Roma Wine's presentation tonight of Suspense.
Between the acts of suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Gracious hostess, internationally known on entertaining, Elsa Maxwell's suggestions are always worthwhile.
Spring is here, and nature is again bursting into life. Let's bring some of this beauty to the dinner table. A centerpiece of spring flowers will brighten your table, and there's no better way to awaken winter-weary appetites than by serving cool Roma Burgundy with the meal. This glorious wine from California goes well with almost any food.
So simple, and yet how charming. A few flowers to give your table the gay note of spring. A bottle of cool, delicious Roma Burgundy as the subtle accompaniment to a savory meal. You'll enjoy the tart piquancy, the fruity, robust taste of this distinguished Roma Burgundy. Like all Roma wines, unvaryingly good, always high in quality. The result of selected grapes, slowly brought to perfection in California's choicest vineyards, gently pressed, then brought to fullest flavor by the ancient skill of Roma's famed wineries. Yet all this goodness is yours for only pennies a glass. Remember, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wines. R-O-M-A, Roma Wines.
And now Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Dane Clark as Eddie in A Guy Gets Lonely, a play well calculated to keep you in suspense.
My mind was going round like a merry-go-round. Having an old moocher like Horace walk up out of a clear sky and introduce you to a girl like Jorley. Proposing to her after only 48 hours, and then having a cop come along and tell you she's dead. They took me down to headquarters, and I was there all day answering questions and trying to dope out what had happened myself. I even told them how she'd asked me for $1,000, but they didn't pay much attention to anything I said.
It's a simple case of suicide, and that's that.
But it couldn't be. Jorley wouldn't commit suicide.
You recognized her, didn't you?
Well,
what?
People don't look quite the same after they've fallen 10 stories on a concrete site.
But you recognized her?
Yes, I recognize her. But why did she write my name on the inside of that door?
How do I know what women think about before they jump out the window? I'm not Mr. Anthony.
Well, look, maybe somebody followed her. Maybe somebody tried to force the door.
There wasn't any lock on the door.
Then it would have been that much easier. Maybe somebody...
Look, Eddie, just what are you trying to make out of this?
I don't know. All I know is it couldn't have been as simple as this.
You wouldn't be thinking about murder, would you?
Maybe.
Now, Eddie, this sort of thing happens all the time. Look, I'll draw you a picture. Friendless girl meets guy. They start going together. Then she asks him for money. He doesn't give. The next day,
Look, I told you we were
I ain't
going to get
doing that
married.
talking. She asks him for money, and he doesn't give, see? The next day, she writes his name on the handiest plain white surface, and boom. Now, how does that look to you?
All right. But what about Horace? Have you tried to trace him?
Yeah, sure. We tried to find Horace. Only we didn't. Mainly on account of he doesn't exist, if you ask me.
I talked to him, I tell you. He introduced us.
You don't have to go that far to explain how a man meets a girl nowadays, Eddie.
Look, he did introduce us. He was an old man, white hair. It was in a shooting gallery.
And he has a hobby of introducing guys to beautiful gals, and nobody knows where he lives. And the only time you ever met him was in the Penny Arcade that's so busy they wouldn't remember George Washington being in there. That and the time you were seen together by a couple of lake trout. Oh, cut it out, will you, son?
All right, go on home, Eddie. I wouldn't leave town just yet, though, if I were you.
All right.
And, Eddie.
Yeah?
I wouldn't push that murder theory too far, either.
Why?
Because you know who's the only possible suspect for murder? That's right. You.
First, I didn't know what to do or what to think. I didn't blame the cops. From where they sat, it just didn't make any sense any other way. And then all at once, I knew what I was going to do. First, I moved to another hotel, just in case. And then I started growing a full beard, and I dyed it black. And my hair, too. You see, I'm a natural blonde, so it turned out pretty good. Good enough to pass off for a night anyway. And I really am an actor. Maybe no Barrymore, but enough to give a fair imitation of an accent. And I got some different clothes, and then I was ready. I began haunting that shooting gallery because I figured the old man had a system. But after about 3 weeks, I'd about given up hope. When one Saturday night, I walked into a little place off Times Square, and I saw him. My heart was jumping through hoops, but I just sort of moseyed around, tried to look as down in the mouth as I could, kept my face out of the light. I felt pretty safe with the beard, so I went over and I stood next to him.
Oh. Well, my aim seems to be off tonight. Oh, pardon me. Do you have a match?
I reckon I do. Sure, here you are.
Oh, thank you. My boy, like to try your skill at the shooting gallery? Perhaps a little wager?
Oh, no, thanks. I've just about had enough shooting to last me a lifetime. I just come back from 2 years in the South Pacific.
So that's where you got the beard?
Yeah, a bunch of us fellas grew 'em down there. I promised my kinfolk I'd let 'em see it before I shaved it off.
I'm not so sure I would shave it off. It's mightily becoming to you.
Thank you.
Where are your folks?
Texas. Got a mighty nice little ranch of my own down there. I sure do miss it.
Kind of lonely, huh?
Oh, you all can say that again, mister.
Well, son, if you'd forgive an old man for sticking his nose in somebody's business where he's got no call to...
Shucks, no. What's on your mind?
I think I know just the medicine for you.
Why, what's that?
A girl.
That was it. That's what I've been waiting for. First, I thought of taking the old devil out in the alley and sweating it out of him right then and there. Then I thought, no, there'll be a girl, and I want to have a talk with that girl. In the meantime, the old man was going on about that fishing.
If you'd care to join us, my boy, I think I can promise you a very pleasant afternoon.
Well, I reckon I couldn't do that. Perhaps if you could make it tomorrow night.
Well, now, that might be arranged. Where would you like to have us meet you?
Well, couldn't you just sort of give me the young lady's phone number, tell her I was fixing the call?
I'm afraid, you see, this particular young lady doesn't have a phone.
Don't think I'm not downright grateful, mister, or that I wouldn't enjoy your company, but...
But you'd rather be alone.
Shucks. No, don't get me wrong. I'm no wolf or nothing like that, but... Well, when a fella has his first date with a gal in more than 2 years, maybe you can't understand what that means.
I think maybe I get the general idea, son. I'll tell her to look for a handsome Texan with a beard. Can you be here tomorrow night at, say, 8 o'clock?
Oh, I calculate I sure can.
Well, then, my boy, you've got yourself a date.
The next night I was there in plenty of time. I had plans for that girl, lots of plans. As I got around toward 8 o'clock, I kept looking toward the street entrance, but somehow I must have missed her because the next thing I knew, there was somebody standing beside me and I heard a voice.
Hello there. I'm Joyce Allen.
It seemed as though minutes went by before I was able to say a word. If it hadn't been dark where I was sitting, she couldn't have but helped to see that something was wrong. Because the girl was Jorley. My Jorley, who was supposed to be dead. The Jorley that I'd seen it myself at the slab at the city morgue. And somehow I managed to pull myself together and start talking.
You're Johnny Farrell, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. It was sure mighty nice of you to come.
Oh, that's all right. I wasn't doing anything.
Is there anything in particular you'd like to do now?
No, nothing in particular.
Well, I thought maybe you'd like to go dancing or something like that, only
Only what?
Well, I discovered a terrible thing just before you got here, Miss... Ma'am.
You can call me Joyce.
You see, I left my wallet up in my hotel room.
Oh?
If you all wouldn't mind stopping by there with me for a minute while I pick it up, then we could...
And I suppose while we're up there, I can look over your etchings.
Oh, no, ma'am. I ain't that kind. Honest, I'm not. But if you don't want to go,
Oh, what's the difference? Come on, let's go. You always keep it this dark in here?
Well, there's a couple of bulbs burn out. I told them to have them fixed.
Oh, well, never mind. Where's that wallet?
In the closet there, my other suit. Say, Joyce.
Yes?
Would you mind if I stepped in here and sort of slicked up a little before we went out?
No. Go right ahead.
I went into the bathroom and got out my razor. My plans were still the same. I excused myself a minute before we came upstairs, and I made the phone call that I'd planned to. But there was a couple of little extra flourishes to be added on now that I hadn't figured on before. First, I shaved off my beard. Then I went to work on the hair dye with some rubbing alcohol. It came out pretty easy. And I was almost ready when I heard her voice in the next room.
Johnny,
Yes?
I think maybe I'd better go home.
You mean you reckon you don't want to go out with me?
Oh, well, it isn't you, Johnny, but
Well, what is it?
you'll think I'm crazy if I tell you.
No, I won't. What is it?
Well, you sort of remind me of someone.
Who?
Oh, just someone I used to know.
Oh, but Joyce, I'm all ready to go now.
Well,
Only first I thought maybe we better have a little more light on the subject.
I thought you said you didn't have any...
Hello, Jorlie.
Hetty.
That's right.
Hetty, I
You
thought
I'd never catch up with you. All right, Jorlie, all right. Give.
What?
Come on, talk and talk fast. Who was that other girl, the one they thought was you, the one who's dead?
Well, she was my sister.
Sister? What happened to her?
I don't know.
What kind of a racket are you and the old man running anyway?
Well, Horace is... He's my father, Eddie. He's my stepfather, anyway.
Oh, that's nice. That's very nice. It keeps it all in the family, huh?
Oh, Eddie, you can think anything you want to. Nothing could be quite bad enough, but... Please believe me, I wasn't playing any games with you.
No?
No. That's why I sent Evelyn that day, my sister. I gave her your ring so you'd know she really came from me. I just couldn't face you myself.
Face me with what?
With what Horace and I had planned to do to you.
The old shakedown, huh?
I guess so. Evelyn was horrified anyway when she got wind of it. She was a funny girl. She belonged to one of those religious sects, and she said we'd have to atone for our sins, be punished. No.
Maybe you better start from the beginning.
Well, that's about all. We were awfully hard up. And Mother really was sick. And I'd borrowed some money once from a man I'd met. I paid it back that time, but it gave Horace ideas. He wheedled and threatened and said our mother might die, and... Well, I'd had a couple of pretty raw deals pulled on me out here, and I just didn't care anymore, I guess. That is... till I met you.
Yeah, and so you sent your sister to me to confess all, and she jumped out of the window instead. Is that what you think happened?
I don't know.
Then why didn't you tell me what you knew then?
Well, it wouldn't have brought Evelyn back to life. And Horace said we'd all go to prison, and... You see, Mother didn't know what was going on. It would have broken her heart.
Yes, but you went right back at it again.
Horace said if he'd had just a little money, he'd go away. He'd leave us alone and go back east.
And I was supposed to be the next victim as Johnny Farrell with a ranch in Texas.
No, Eddie, no. Not after I met you.
No.
No. You weren't before, were you? Oh, Eddie, maybe if you knew a little more about what a girl is up against in this town, you'd understand.
Telegram.
Telegram?
Well. Yes. I had a hunch about you, my boy.
Horace.
Why, you will...
Oh, don't try anything foolish. I'm quite expert with this little gun, as you may recall, my boy. Now, I suggest we close the door and have a nice, quiet talk just between ourselves. That's better. So, in spite of all my admonitions, you still persist in this confessional mood, do you, my dear?
Horace, what are you going to do?
You young people may not see it quite my way, but I'm an old man, and I don't fancy the notion of spending my remaining years behind bars. It's quite a penalty for extortion, you know?
You're telling me.
And so, I'm afraid there's going to be a little accident up here. Something like the accident that happened to poor Evelyn.
So you did kill her?
Well, technically, yes, I did, assist her through that window after she insisted on making a scene.
Why,
Evelyn was always excitable, you know. Really not quite normal, I'm afraid.
Oh, Horace, you're mad.
Now, my dear, I want you to write a little note. See, there's paper and pen over there on the desk. And you will say, Darling, forgive me, but it will be best this way for both of us. And sign your name.
You must be mad to think I'd do such a thing.
You wouldn't like to see me kill your lover here, would you? Oh, yes, these old eyes can still tell love when they see it.
Jorlie, look, don't do it. Don't do it. Can't you see he's going to kill us both anyway?
Horace, will you promise,
Of course
then?
I will. That's it, my dear. Write it down just as I told you.
There's only one thing wrong with all this, Horace. You want to know what it is?
Naturally.
I've already called the police. They're waiting for me in the lobby right now. And if I'm not down there in about 5 minutes, they'll be up here.
Oh, dear. This is embarrassing, isn't it?
Isn't it?
I think perhaps you'd better get on that telephone, my boy. Give directions for the officers to go away immediately. Say that you no longer have any need of them.
Well, all right. Hello? Hello, desk. You know those two men who are waiting in the lobby for me? Well, tell them to get up here as fast as they can. You!
Horace, no!
Jolie! Why, you won't... Jolie, are you all right?
I think so. It's only my shoulder.
Oh, darling, you shouldn't have gotten
I'd rather have had it been me than you.
Look, I'll call a doctor.
What's going on here? We heard a shot.
Look, there's the man who's responsible for the suicide of Jolie Andrews. Only it wasn't a suicide. He killed her. It wasn't Jolie Andrews. That's Jolie Andrews over here.
What are you talking
about?
Hello?
I've got to get a doctor. Wait a minute, will you?
All right.
Hello?
What was that again?
Don't you understand? Look, that isn't Jolie Andrews that's dead. That's Jolie Andrews over there.
You're not making sense, man.
Look, fella, look. I met this guy at a hotel.
Yeah?
And then we went fishing, and then we put the worms on a hook, and...
Yeah?
And then she was in a slab, and she was dead, only she's not dead. She's wonderful. We're going to get married, see? I love her. And then Horace and I were in the shooting gallery. Then I met him, and I dyed my hair, and I made a straight Texas accent, see? And I met him one afternoon, and I played the whole thing over myself. And Joey's alive.
And so closes A Guy Gets Lonely, in which Roma Wines have brought you Mr. Dane Clark as star of tonight's study in Suspense. Before our star returns to the microphone, let me say a word for Roma Wines, the sponsor of Suspense. Elsa Maxwell is known the world over for her great charm as a hostess. Now, here's a brief message from this noted authority.
It is always a gracious act of hospitality to serve a glass of distinguished Roma wine. I suggest you try Roma California Tokay, a wine of unusual versatility, enjoyable any time, before or after meals. I serve it frequently with dessert or coffee. It's perfect with fruit or nuts or with any light snack.
Follow Miss Maxwell's good suggestion. Try Roma Tokay. A velvety smooth, flame-bright wine, moderately sweet, light, yet delightfully rich in flavor. And you'll find that all Roma wines are always delicious, always of unvarying goodness and fine quality. The next time you use vermouth, sweet or dry, use Roma vermouth. Zestful, herb-flavored Roma vermouth is blended, mellowed, developed, and bottled in California with all the traditional wine-making skill of Roma wineries, yet surprisingly low-priced. Try Roma vermouth soon, won't you?
This is Dane Clark. That I enjoyed appearing on Suspense goes without saying. All of us do. Next week's show sounds like it'll be really swell. It's a story written by one of the great contemporary masters of the art of suspense, Dashiell Hammett. And starring in it will be two of your favorite Hollywood people, John Payne and Stuart Irwin. I'll surely want to catch the one next Thursday, and I know you will, too.
Suspense is produced, edited, and directed by William Spear. Dane Clark appeared through the courtesy of Warner Brothers and will soon be seen with Dennis Morgan in their production, God is My Co-Pilot. Next Thursday, same time, John Payne will be your star of Suspense. Presented by Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
From 79 years ago, April 5th, 1945, Dane Clark in an episode of Suspense. Coming up next on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we move from 45 to 51 and hear an episode of Suspense starring Jack Benny. He did 4 episodes on Suspense. This one probably the most dramatic, Murder in G-flat.
In times of economic uncertainty and chaos, your money means nothing. You may not even be able to get it from your bank or ATM. And the money you do have in the stock market will go down and down. What you can bank on is gold and silver. Gold and silver have been a reliable and trusted form of currency for thousands of years. Gold and silver have never been worth zero, and typically gold holds its value during economic turmoil. Call the Gold Hotline now and learn how to protect your money and your assets with gold and silver. And learn how to set up a new IRA or roll over your current one into a gold-backed IRA. Protect your money from the next market crash with gold and silver. Call now for your free gold guide.
800-515-6302. 800-515-6302. 800-515-6302. That's 800-515-6302.
There's gold in that there vault of Jack Benny's, and we're not going to hear the vault. We will hear quite a bit of gold, at least cash. Murder in G-Flat. This episode of Suspense goes back 73 years, April 5th, 1951, Jack Benny's first appearance on Suspense.
Autolite and its 96,000 dealers present Suspense. Tonight, Autolite brings you a story of treachery and greed. A story we call Murder in G-Flat, starring Mr. Jack Benny.
Greetings, Pepito, my favorite free holy friar. What's on the menu?
The special, Senor Wilcox, is Autolite Stay Full Battery.
You mean you're serving the battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use?
See. What is better for quick, dependable starts, huh?
Ah, nothing's better than an Autolite Stay Full, that frisky friend of car owners from coast to coast. But...
What? You don't want one, senor?
Everybody wants an Autolite Stay Full. The buxom battery with fiberglass retaining mats protecting every positive plate to prevent shedding and flaking, and to keep the Autolite Stay Full battery power-packed for paramount performance.
See. How you want it, senor?
Why, it's perfect just as it is, Pepito, and built to give longer life, as proved by tests conducted according to accepted life cycle standards. So, friends, have your neighborhood Autolite battery dealer serve your car an Autolite Stay Full battery, the battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use.
See. And remember,
you're always right with Autolite.
And now with Murder in G-Flat and the transcribed performance of Mr. Jack Benny, Autolite hopes once again to keep you in suspense.
Lieutenant, in here, sir, in the rec hall.
What's he doing in the rec hall?
Well, he thought he'd tune the piano while I was waiting, Lieutenant.
Sunday night. Why couldn't you guys pick a better night than Sunday night? My one day off, and I have to come down here.
Sorry we had to call you, Joe.
This is the guy, huh?
Yeah. Hey, you.
That's it. C-flat. If I had my wrench...
This is the lieutenant.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lieutenant.
Name?
Oh, my name is Remington. Hercules Remington.
That's it, Joe. We checked.
Huh.
Pardon me, Lieutenant, but my wife, Martha, is going to be awfully worried. You see, I haven't seen her since this morning. They told me...
You haven't seen your wife since this morning?
No, and I thought that if I could phone her and at least tell her where I am...
Where'd you pick him up?
Coney Island, Joe. He called us from there.
Yes, and I should have called my wife, too. Look, Lieutenant, I don't want to seem persistent about
You'll have
this.
plenty of time later to call your wife. Now, give the lieutenant the story in detail, just like you told it to me on the way down here to the station.
What kind of work do you do, Remington?
Well, I'm a piano tuner, Lieutenant. Yours is out of tune. C-flat, Lieutenant. See, if I could get my bag, I'd tune...
Look, Remington, I haven't got all night. Now, either get on with your story or I'll have...
All right, Lieutenant. But I really would like to call my wife first.
Start your story.
All right. But if there's any explaining to be done to my wife, you guys will have to do it.
We'll be happy to. Now, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Well, Lieutenant, this whole mess started yesterday morning, Saturday. I got up, had breakfast with my wife, Martha, and my Uncle Herman. He's my black sheep uncle of the family. He's a carnival man, came to work at the World's Fair here, and has been living with us ever since. I think he ought to pay at least 1/3 of the rent, but Martha, well, she feels sorry for him. Anyway, I left the house around 10 o'clock on my way to the Lippenridge School of Music. I usually tune their pianos on the first Saturday of the month. You see, because there aren't any classes there on that Saturday. I catch the BMT at 57th and get off at Union Square. Well, yesterday morning I got on the subway, just like I always do. I carry a little ordinary brown bag with all my tools in it and usually lay it right next to me under the seat. I was just sitting there, thinking hard, wondering how I was going to meet the bills at the end of the month, when a man sat down next to me. He shoved something under the seat and just sat there staring ahead. B flat, D flat, B flat, D flat, B flat, B flat.
I beg your pardon.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I got carried away for a moment. 4 stops later, the man got up, reached under the seat, pulled out a little brown bag, and started for the door. I remember noticing he was bald-headed and wearing big black horn-rimmed glasses. For a minute, I thought he'd stolen my bag of tools, but I reached my hand under the seat and found my bag was still there. I remember sort of chuckling to myself, thinking of the coincidence that he'd been carrying the same type of bag. Well, anyway, I got off at Union Square and walked up to the Lippenridge School of Music on 14th. There are 4 floors there, a piano on each floor, and I usually start at the top and work my way down. Well, since the school doesn't have any classes on Saturday, the place was deserted. That one's sour. Yeah, D flat. Well, I'll soon have that in shape. What the... I zipped open my bag to take out my tuning hammer and my wedges, but there were no tools in my bag. The tools were gone, and in their place were bundles and bundles of crisp $10 bills. And then it hit me. The little bald-headed man on the subway. The man who sat down next to me. This bag belonged to him. He picked up mine by mistake. There was no name on the bag, no identification of any kind. I started counting one of the bundles. Each bundle contained $1,000 in $10 bills, and there were 25 bundles. I had just come heir to $25,000. When I got home, Martha was washing some clothes out on the back porch, and Uncle Herman was rolling pennies for his pitch penny concession. I called both of them into the living room, pulled all the shades down, closed and locked all the doors, and set the bag on the table.
Hercules, what are you doing back home so soon?
What kind of nonsense is this, nephew?
Martha, Uncle Herman.
You look awful pale.
I guess I do.
Hercules, what's the matter with you?
Listen to me, both of you. I'm rich.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, Hercules, act your age.
I'm not lying to you.
Look, I gotta get out.
You must be sick.
Look, will both of you be quiet for just a minute?
Sounds like he's drunk.
Are you sick, Hercules?
Look, I'm not sick and I'm not drunk. I've got it right here.
You've got what?
Look. Wow.
Hercules.
Now do you believe me? Now do you believe I'm not sick or drunk? Look at it. $25,000.
$25,000? That's a lot of money.
Hercules, where'd you get all this money?
I found it.
Found it?
Found it?
Yes.
Listen to me, Hercules Remington. Don't you lie to me. Where'd you get all that money?
I told you, Martha. I found it.
I haven't lived with you for 10 years for nothing. I know when you're lying to me. Now tell me, where'd you get all this money?
Okay, if I tell you the truth, I know you won't believe
Well, tell me anyway.
Well, all right. Look, this morning I got on the subway, just like I always do. And some little bald-headed man with black horn-rimmed glasses sat down next to me. When he got up to get off the subway, I noticed he was carrying a brown bag, just like mine. At first I thought it was mine. But mine was still under the seat. Anyway, when I got to the music school, I opened my bag and And all this money was in it.
Sounds fantastic.
Hercules.
But it's the truth. The little man picked up my bag by mistake. I searched this one for some identification, but there isn't any.
Then you mean the little bald-headed man has your bag with the tools in it?
I guess he does.
It seems odd that anyone would be carrying this much money around in a little brown bag.
Odd or not, the fact still remains that I didn't steal it.
Well, I guess there isn't any way that you can get a hold of this man, so we'll just have to turn the money over to the police.
The police?
Yes, I said the police.
But why?
Why? Good heavens, Hercules, you don't expect to keep this money.
Why not?
It isn't ours.
Why? Why isn't it ours? I found it. I didn't steal it, Martha.
Hercules!
Martha, don't you see? Maybe this is fate. Maybe we were meant to have this money. Maybe if
You're crazy. You're out of your head. You're talking like a madman, and I won't have it.
But, Martha...
You didn't come by this money honestly. It isn't legally yours.
Now, wait a minute, Martha. Maybe Hercules is
Now, you stay out of this, Uncle Herman. Hercules, you're going to take this money to the police.
No. No, I'm not. I'm not going to take this to the police or anyone else. Do you understand me? I'm not going to take this money to the police.
Hercules, I don't understand you at all. But mark my words, you'll pay for this.
Well...
Don't pay no attention to her, nephew.
But why does she have to be that way? Why can't she understand me just this once? Why can't she see my side of it? See, I didn't steal this money.
No, you didn't, nephew.
And I'm going to keep it.
Sure you are, nephew. Sure you are. You're going to keep it.
You bet I am. The next morning, that was this morning, Sunday, Martha wouldn't speak to me at all. Her eyes were all red and puffed up. I could see that she'd been crying. And Uncle Herman wasn't doing much talking either. Martha just kept sniffling as she puttered around the stove. Martha, my peach isn't peeled.
Peel it yourself.
But I...
Here, I'll peel it for you, nephew.
Thanks, Uncle Herman. Martha, please, won't
Don't
you try...
you talk to me.
Oh, don't be too hard on him, Martha. After all, a man's got a right...
I told you once, Uncle Herman, you stay out of this. It's none of your business.
Sorry. She's plenty mad. Well, ain't you going to answer the phone?
Hello?
Mr. Remington?
Yes?
Hercules Remington?
Yes, who is this, please?
I want to return your bag of piano tools to you, Mr. Remington.
I
believe there was a slight mix-up. I believe in my haste I picked up your bag instead.
But how did you find me? I mean...
Oh, it was quite simple. There's only one piano tuner with the initials HR in New York City.
Well, what do you know?
You do want your piano tools back, don't you, Mr. Remington?
Listen to me.
I don't think you'd like the idea of not being able to tune any more pianos.
What?
And I'd like to have my bag returned.
Of course.
As soon as possible.
Yes.
Tonight.
Tonight?
At 9:30 tonight. Meet me at Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden?
At 9:30 at the 49th Street entrance. The door on the far end will be left slightly open. And, please be prompt, Mr. Remington, with my brown bag. You see, it will displease my business partner considerably if he finds I've lost the bag.
All right. The 49th Street entrance, the door on the far end.
Hercules, what's wrong? Well, you're as white as a ghost.
I am?
You sure are.
I guess I should be. That was the little bald-headed man with horn-rimmed glasses, Uncle Herman. I've just lost $25,000. Uncle Herman went in the living room to read the Sunday paper. I went in the bedroom to tell Martha about the phone call. But she wasn't there. In fact, she wasn't anywhere in the house. She was gone, and I figured that she'd probably gone over to her sister's house. I was so nervous the rest of the afternoon I couldn't eat a thing. I left the house for Madison Square Garden about 9 o'clock. From riches to rags in about 24 hours. And I was back riding the subway. I walked up 8th Avenue to the garden. I turned and walked up 49th Street to the entrance and stopped. Sure enough, one of the doors on the far end was open a little, just as the little man had told me it would be. I slipped in through the open door. It was pitch black. I couldn't see a thing. Hello? Hello? Anybody here? Hello? Is there anyone here? What the? I stumbled over something and almost fell. I struck a match and looked down at a body. The body of the little man in horn-rimmed glasses. His head was all covered with blood. I started to blow out the match, and then something caught my eye. Lying next to his body was my brown bag with the initials HR. And next to the bag, covered with blood, was my tuning hammer.
Autolite is bringing you Mr. Jack Benny in Murder in G-Flat, tonight's production in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Senor Wilcox, why does the Autolite Stay Full battery need water like Pepito needs a hole in the head?
Well, Pepito, the Autolite Stay Full needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use because that consistently conserving and constantly cooperating battery has over 3 times the liquid protection of batteries without Stay Full features.
And why is the Autolite Stay Full strong as a bull, senor?
Because of the fiberglass retaining mats protecting every positive plate. They prevent shedding and flaking and keep the power-producing materials in place.
Greater convenience and dependable starting, yes, senor?
Right, Pepito. And in addition, the Autolite Stay Full battery gives you longer life, as proved by tests conducted according to accepted life cycle standards.
And all these make the Stay Full welcome a siesta after fiesta. Eh, senor?
Right you are. So, friends, visit your neighborhood Autolite battery dealer for an Autolite Stay Full. The battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use. Your Autolite battery man is fully equipped to give you the best in battery advice and service because...
Because you are always right with Autolite.
And now, Autolite brings back to our Hollywood soundstage Mr. Jack Benny in Elliot Lewis's production of Murder in G-Flat, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Please, Lieutenant, may I call my wife? I want...
Finish your story first, Mr. Remington. You can call her after that.
Oh, all right.
Now, you were standing over the body of this man in Madison Square Garden. You found your tuning hammer next to the body.
Yes, my tuning hammer. Let me tell you, Lieutenant, I was scared. Plenty scared. Here I was standing over a dead man in Madison Square Garden. And clutched in my hand was his brown bag containing $25,000. Who had killed him? Who had... But I couldn't stop to think about that now. I had to get out of there, and fast, and take my bag and hammer lying on the floor with me. I started to reach for my bag when... a sound, G-flat. Someone had opened up a knife. Whoever it was coming toward me, I blew out the match and waited. Who was in that corridor with me? Was it the business partner of the little man? Was it... I started to move backwards, and then a big black figure loomed up at me. With all my strength, I brought the brown bag swinging up from the floor. I ran until I thought my legs would drop. My mind was all fogged up now. I couldn't think straight. Who was the guy who just tried to kill me? One thing I knew for sure, I had to get rid of this money until I could think things out. But where? Where could I get rid of it? I neared the corner of 59th and 8th Avenue and then saw it. A bus terminal. Why not? A public locker in the bus station. I opened the door and walked in.
Scranton, Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia leaving in 10 minutes?
Yes, ma'am, in about 20 minutes.
Excuse me, mister. I'd like to have a key for a locker.
Just a second.
G sharp.
What'd you say?
Oh, nothing.
What do you know? Haven't got an empty one right now. Have to wait a little while.
You mean out of all of these hundreds of lockers, you haven't got one empty?
Well, I'm sorry, mister, but you can see for yourself. A lot of servicemen in town over the weekend.
Well, how long will it be?
10, 15 minutes, maybe a couple hours.
Okay, I'll wait. I'll sit over there. I bought a paper at the newsstand and sat down on one of the benches. I didn't even know what I was reading. I just kept... And then I saw it. On page 2, a complete account of a robbery that had occurred on Friday night at one of the downtown post offices. 2 bandits had escaped with $25,000 in $10 bills. This was it. It must have been. But would the police believe a story like that? Of course they wouldn't. I had the money, and it was my tuning hammer there, lying next to the body in the garden. I got out of that bus terminal in a hurry and walked up 8th Avenue. Where could I go? The only place I could think of was Coney Island. Coney Island and Uncle Herman and his pitch penny concession. It was late, and the island amusement park was almost deserted. It was cold and close to 11. Uncle Herman was leaning against the side of his concession as I walked up.
Why, nephew, what are you doing out this way?
Uncle Herman, quick, let's go in back.
All right. There ain't no customers anyway. Yeah. Oh, what happened, Hercules? Did you give the money back to the man?
I went to meet him at the garden, just like he told me. But when I got there and I found him, he was dead.
Dead?
He'd been beat over the head with my tuning hammer.
Why, Hercules.
I was just about to grab my hammer and bag and get out of there when someone made a lunge at me in the dark. But I got away. I went to a bus terminal to put the money in a locker. I had to wait. And then I read that the money is stolen post office money.
Oh, you got yourself in a mess, nephew.
I'm frantic. I don't know what to do. That's why I came here.
Well, I'm glad you did, nephew. Glad you did.
But what am I going to do?
Well, best thing would be to go back and get that hammer and bag. Leave the money here. I'll hide it for you.
But maybe I ought to go to the police.
You can't go to the police with that story. They'd never believe you, Hercules.
I know.
Bring your bag and come with me, nephew. I got a hiding place for that money that no one will ever find.
Uncle Herman locked his place up, and then he led me over to the fun house. It was closed now, and the place was all dark. But Uncle Herman had a key. He led me up some stairs to a high ramp that people climb on, to slide down the big chute. He stopped at one of them.
Here, nephew. Right under this top chute, we'll just pry one of the boards loose a little and slip the bag with the money underneath. No one in the world will ever look for it. There we are. Now, give me the bag, nephew.
Here you are, Uncle Herman. Are you sure that no one will find it here?
Absolutely, nephew. You and I are the only ones who know where it is. There's nothing to be afraid of. Now, hand me the bag.
Here you are.
That's it. Now, let's just check to make sure that...
What's the matter, Uncle Herman?
Where's the money, nephew?
The money? What are you talking about? It's in the...
Is this what you call money? Or this bag's got nothing in it but bundles of torn newspaper?
I don't understand.
Hercules, dear nephew, what did you do with the money?
I don't know. It was in there. You saw it yourself when I brought it home.
This a scheme of yours, Hercules?
Scheme?
Trying to cheat on your dear old uncle, aren't you, Hercules?
Uncle Herman, what are you talking about?
Where's the money, Hercules?
G flat. That knife. G flat.
This ain't no time to play games with your Uncle Herman, Hercules.
Uncle Herman, where were you tonight?
What's that, Hercules?
G flat, your knife. It's G flat.
Looks like this thing has got you going, Hercules.
It was you in the garden, wasn't it, Uncle Herman? You killed him.
Let's not waste any more time, nephew. Now tell me where that money is.
I don't know.
Stop lying to your dear uncle, Hercules.
I'm not lying.
I usually use this knife to scale fish. The smell of fish is stronger than the smell of blood.
But I tell you, I don't know where that money is.
You're lying to me. You came down here just to throw me off, didn't you? Make me think you lost the money.
Uncle Herman, stay away from me.
All right, Hercules. So you won't tell your dear uncle.
He rushed at me with the knife. I stepped back, tripped over the board he had pried loose, and fell down. But Uncle Herman... He went hurtling over me, head over heels down the long slide. When I got back down at the bottom of the slide chute, he was dead.
The uncle had his neck broken, Lieutenant.
Yeah. What about the money?
Well, Mr. Remington's wife turned it over to the authorities this morning about 11 o'clock. She said the money wasn't his, and she didn't want him carrying it around.
Well, I guess that'll be all, Mr. Remington. You can go now.
But isn't it dangerous? I mean, the partner is still...
We picked up his business partner a few hours after the robbery.
Oh.
But just in case you happen to come across another $25,000 that doesn't belong to you, promise me that you'll get in touch with the authorities, will you, Mr. Remington?
Oh, I've learned my lesson, Lieutenant. Believe you me, I have.
Yeah, good.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, I almost forgot. I gotta call my wife. She's probably frantic by now.
There's a payphone right outside in the corridor.
Payphone?
Yeah, right around the corner. You can't miss it.
Well, she's waited this long. I think I'll just tell her when I get home.
Suspense. Presented by Autolite. Tonight's star, Mr. Jack Benny.
Ah, fine meal, Pepito. So long.
Hey, no dessert, Senor Wilcox?
I never desert, Pepito. I'm always faithful to those 400 fine products for cars, trucks, tractors, planes, and boats made by Autolite in 28 plants from coast to coast. These include complete ignition systems used as original factory equipment on many leading makes of our finest cars. Generators, coils, distributors, electric windshield wipers, voltage regulators, wire and cables, starting motors, and many more. And they're all engineered to fit together perfectly, work together perfectly, because they're all part of the Autolite team. So, friends, don't accept electrical parts supposed to be as good. Ask for and insist on Autolite original factory parts at your neighborhood service station, car dealer, garage, or repair shop. Remember, you're always right with Autolite.
Next week on Suspense, our stars will be Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz in Early to Death. And in weeks to come, you will hear such famous stars as James Stewart, Ann Baxter, and Rosalind Russell, all on Suspense.
Suspense is produced and directed by Elliot Lewis, with music composed by Lucien Moravec and conducted by Lud Bluskin. Murder in G-Flat was written for Suspense by Richard George Petticini. Portions of this program were transcribed. In tonight's cast, Joseph Kearns was heard as Uncle Herman, Bea Benaderet as Martha, and Larry Thor as the lieutenant. Others in the cast were Clayton Post, Jack Crucian, and Paul Fries. Jack Benny may be heard each Sunday on CBS on his own radio program, The Jack Benny Show.
And remember, next week on Suspense, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz in a story about a mysterious airplane crash in the mountains of Mexico. A tale we call Early to Death.
You can Buy Autolite Stay Full batteries, Autolite resistor type or standard type spark plugs, Autolite electrical parts at your neighborhood Autolite dealers. Switch to Autolite. Good night.
Tonight, Autolite salutes the men and women leaders in boys' clubs all over America. This is National Boys Club Week, a time to remember that our boys' clubs serve the boy, the community, and the nation by training tomorrow's leaders today. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Very much out of character for Benny. Murder in G-flat 73 years ago, April 5th, 1951. We'll move up 3 years to 1954, an episode of Suspense starring David Niven. That's coming up next.
Are you suffering with anxiety, depression, PTSD, an eating disorder, or even a substance abuse problem? If it's causing problems at work or with your family, get help now. At Insight Mental Health and Wellness, we help and treat all types of depression and mental issues. We will help you use your insurance to get away from it all, to a beautiful, sunny, and tranquil vacation-like environment, so you can recharge yourself. And with the Family Medical Leave Act, you could take the time off you need from work. Plus, with the Affordable Care Act, your treatment could be 100% covered. If you're suffering from any kind of anxiety, depression, PTSD, eating disorder, or even a substance abuse problem, use your insurance and get away from it all. Come to sunny California. Call Insight Mental Health and Wellness now.
800-281-8944. 800-281-8944. 800-281-8944. That's 800-281-8944.
Tomorrow we're going to have a couple of requests. We're going to have an episode of The Bob Hope Show from 1948. Monty Woolley as the Magnificent Montague from 1951. An episode of The Jack Benny Show as he opens the pool for the spring season. An episode of the CBS Radio Workshop, Speaking of Cinderella, starring Vincent Price and Lorraine Tuttle. And another episode of Claudia. We'll get back to Superman on Sunday. But right now we continue this Friday edition of the program with another episode of Suspense as we continue our Suspense Marathon. This episode goes back 70 years, April 5th, 1954. David Niven stars in Grand Theft.
Autolite and its 98,000 dealers bring you Mr. David Niven in tonight's presentation of Suspense.
Tonight, Autolite presents a story based on fact. The true report of a man who had everything going for him. But since all his dealings were illegal, it became necessary to move around more frequently than was usual. It's called Grand Theft. Our star, Mr. David Niven.
Hey, Hap, what's the rush?
Well, not much time, Harlow.
For what?
Why, to enter that Autolite family charity drawing.
You're right, Hap. And friends, if you haven't signed up in the greatest charity event of all time, you'd better hurry, too. You may make it possible for your own church or hospital,
Or your school or club.
or any other recognized local or national charity to share in $100,000 in cash.
Tell them how simple it is to enter, Harlow.
Why, all you do is sign your name and address on a registration form at any Autolite family car dealer. There's nothing to try or buy, nothing to solve or write. But if you're one of the 25 persons selected, you will name any recognized charity you wish to share in $100,000. So visit any or all of these car showrooms: DeSoto, Hudson, Plymouth, Studebaker, Dodge, Willis, Nash, Packard, Kaiser, or Chrysler. There's not much time left to enter the Autolite family charity drawing, so why not sign up tomorrow?
And now, Autolite presents Mr. David Niven in Grand Theft, hoping once again to keep you in suspense.
Here's how it works. You appraise things. You stroll through a house, take your notes, make your calculations, and eventually you come up with some interesting figures on which they pay you. Of course, it's interesting work. And if one is resourceful and competent and ambitious when no one is looking, one might turn out to be wealthy.
Oh, there you are, Mr. Bentley. Oh, I was afraid you might get away.
Oh, no, my dear Mrs. Payne, just waiting to say goodbye to you.
Oh, Mr. Bentley.
Oh, Mrs. Payne.
Well, I'm glad you did wait to say goodbye. I feel I've really come to know you these last 3 days while you've been on our home appraising all of our goods.
And I to know you, dear Mrs. Payne. Oh, I really must hurry now. My plane leaves in an hour.
Mr. Bentley, I know you've seen many lovely homes in your line of work. What do you think of ours?
Oh, one of the loveliest I've ever seen. No, truly, Mrs. Payne.
Did the insurance company ask you to appraise the jewelry, too?
No, they didn't, Mrs. Payne.
Oh, dear. Well, we had such a delightful chat while you were here, and I do feel I know you. You did see my bracelet, the platinum one, at dinner last night?
Oh, I couldn't help but notice it, Mrs. Payne.
Well, as a matter of curiosity, and I know you do have this knowledge, what do you think Roger paid for it?
Well, not a cent under $5,000.
Oh, then he does love me.
Be most assured of that, Mrs. Payne. Oh, I really must go now.
Well, whenever you're in Denver again, call us, won't you? Won't you, Mr. Bentley?
Of course I will. Goodbye, Mrs. Payne. You say goodbye, you take a cab to the airport, get on an airplane, and try to forget her fat face on the way to New York. However, once there, in a little pawn shop you know of on 3rd Street, that face looms before you just for one painful second.
Hi, Ben.
Hi.
Well, what you got this time? Let's see. Platinum, eh?
So I understand. What's your price?
Give you $1,500 for the thing. Take it or leave it. What?
You didn't love her enough. I'll take it. But that way is very small stuff. Cheesecake instead of caviar, if you will. No, one must broaden one's horizons, enlarge one's activities, launch into greater, more productive fields. In short, one must never be satisfied with $1,500. That would be decadent.
Well, punctual as usual.
Oh, I always like to make my little visits on time, Maud. I love you. And how is your dear old grandmother today? Is she comfortable?
She's as good as can be expected. When do we get the money?
Soon, very soon. Now, don't be impatient. I'm going to speak to the insurance adjuster later on today. But first, I'd like to speak to Mrs. Mullins seriously. She'll be the key person in this situation.
Ben, wait.
What?
You and I, Ben, we're two of a kind, but Grandmother's not like us, and she doesn't know about us. All I want to do is just get enough money to get out of here and get married and go to Paris and forget everything.
So do I, my dear.
Well, whatever we do, does she have to be involved?
Only in a small way, love.
She's old, Ben. She's never done anything wrong in her whole life. Look, when you talk to her, be gentle. For some reason, she thinks the sun rises on your shoulders. Why, I don't know.
Well, your granny is a woman of supreme taste. You might as well come along. Oh, a terrible house. Ghastly knickknacks.
It's all she has left in her life. These things, her memories.
Too bad she doesn't have any money any longer.
She broke her glasses yesterday. They're being fixed. You have a visitor, Grandmother.
Mrs. Mullen? Mrs. Mullen? Granny dear, good morning.
Ben, it's a wonderful morning, Ben.
Yes, it is, dear. Have you been enjoying yourself? You're looking well.
Oh, Ben, it's such a lovely morning.
Dear, I've something to talk to you about. Will you listen carefully, dear?
Ben, be gentle. Sometimes she'll answer, sometimes she won't, but she hears you.
What is it, Ben?
Now, I want you to be a very good girl and do as I ask you, dear.
Yes, Ben.
Sooner or later, possibly before the end of this week, a man will call on you.
Yes?
Now, I don't know his name, but he will represent an insurance company. Now, he will ask you certain questions about some family jewelry. Do you remember about the family jewelry? Do you remember what I told you about the family jewelry, Mrs. Mullen? Granny?
Yes. I remember, Ben.
What did I tell you?
Maud's grandfather gave it to me. Then I gave it to Maud when she was 21, and she's had it ever since, until it was stolen from her.
Very good, dear. Very, very good. And that is exactly what you will tell this man when he comes here. He'll ask you all about it.
Yes, Ben.
What's this all about? I thought the claim was all right.
Oh, it's just that I'm going to stir things up a bit. An insurance adjuster's bound to get here in the next day or two. He'll talk to you, too, Maud. You know what to tell him.
Ben, are we going to get in trouble?
Shh. Now, no one's going to get into any trouble as long as dear old Granny does what she's told.
Ben, dear.
Yes, Granny, dear?
There never was any jewelry in this family, Ben. Never. I've never told a lie, Ben. Never in my life.
You just say what I told you to say, dear, and everything will be fine. You judge the picture of an old woman who never lied, and you wonder about it. But you feel that the larger gain, the promise of it, the Paris of it, the unutterable delight of being financially exhilarated, demands that you continue the action. So you make a phone call to a certain insurance company, then you go home and await developments.
Oh, I believe you called Great Atlantic Underwriters yesterday about a claim?
I did. The people who made it asked me to find out what's delaying the matter.
I'm from Allied Adjustment Bureau, Mr. Bentley. Great Atlantic turned it over to me. My name's Coombs.
I'm happy to know you, Mr. Coombs. Come in.
Oh, thank you. I just took a chance and thought I'd drop by this morning. I'd like to ask you some questions about the claim, if I may. Party name of Mullen, Maud Mullen?
Yes. Look, I'm just getting ready for an appointment. I don't want to be late.
Oh, it'd be all right with me if you want to go on dressing while we're talking, Mr. Bentley.
Well, it would be nice to get this settled for Miss Mullen.
Yes. Oh, I see you paint.
No, I don't paint, Mr. Coombs. Other people paint. I just collect paintings.
Oh.
The pursuit of art is a natural activity with me. Paintings or any other work that I can put in my home. Anything to remind me that man is creative and not destructive.
Now, let's see if I have all this right. Chalmers Bentley, Bentley, no initial?
No.
And you're an appraiser, Mr. Bentley?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. How about now? Are you with anybody now?
No. No, different insurance companies call on me at different times to make appraisals.
See?
No, we're in the same business, Mr. Coombs. Different ends, of course. I appraise fine objets d'art, rare household furnishings, jewelry, and, well, Mr. Coombs, all of those things upon which the ordinary person would have no idea how to place a price. Does that answer you?
Yes. Do you work in New York all the time?
Most of the time. But, of course, I have to travel and sometimes even live away from here, wherever my work takes me.
You have any family here?
No. What's on your mind? Is there something wrong with the Mullen claim?
You reported the burglary for these people 6 weeks ago. You claimed that Maud Mullen was robbed of $18,000 worth of family jewelry, which you had assessed. The claim for the loss was filed 3 days later by you.
And it should have been signed, sealed, and paid off by now, don't you think, Mr. Coombs?
Well, ordinarily, it would have been paid by now, Mr. Bentley.
If I wore a tweed, do you think I could get by without a top coat?
Oh, I think so. It's quite warm outside.
I get so tired wearing a coat every time I go out, Mr. Coombs, don't you? Excuse me. Now, what's holding up the claim?
Several things. First, the burglary they reported. The police found no evidence of a forced entry in that old house of theirs.
Oh, I know all that. But then I'm not a policeman. I'm not the burglar. And it wasn't my jewelry that was stolen. So I can't very well tell the police where to find the evidence, now can I, Mr. Coombs?
Well, it's a point to consider, Mr. Bentley, and you did file the claim for them.
Oh, just as a favor. You keep mentioning that.
There's another point, too.
I don't understand why they put a button in the back of some of these shirts. Can you get it for me, Mr. Coombs?
Oh, yes, of course. Now, as I understand it, that jewelry had been in the Mullen family some 60 years, but in all that time it had never been insured. Now, they take out a policy 3 months ago, and just a month after your assessment, the jewelry's stolen. That strike you as something for us to look into, Mr. Bentley?
No, not at all. Oh, thank you.
Oh, of course. Why didn't they insure it before, Mr. Bentley?
No, I don't know. I have no way of knowing.
I see. Were you in Denver last month?
Yes. Why?
Appraised some things in the house of a family named Payne.
Payne. Yes, I believe that was their name. Yes.
Did you know that 2 days after you left, Mrs. Payne discovered a platinum bracelet missing?
No, I didn't know.
Well, I know. One of the companies I represent held a policy.
Mr. Coombs, this has the flavor of an intimidating conversation. Why do you mention the incident in Denver? It has nothing to do with the claim of the Mullen family?
Well, in a way it has, but I won't go into that right now.
Oh.
Mostly that's why the payment's been held up. We just want to look into it a little more.
Mr. Coombs.
Yeah?
I know you have your little task to perform, and the very nature of your work requires you to suspicion everyone and everything. However, I appraised the jewelry in the Mullen home. I saw something of the circumstances there. They asked me to file the claim for them. When I tell them what you've just told me, perhaps they'll ask me to notify the insurance commissioner.
Well, of course you can do that for them, Mr. Bentley. That's what the insurance commissioner's there for. But I'll tell you what they'll be up against. We aren't convinced there was a burglary. And we aren't sure there was ever that much jewelry in the Mullen family. And if there was, and you assessed it, Mr. Bentley, we aren't so sure that something like what happened to Mrs. Payne's platinum bracelet didn't happen to their stuff. That's how it is. Goodbye, Mr. Bentley.
Goodbye, Mr. Coombs.
Autolite is bringing you Mr. David Niven in Grand Theft, a story based on fact. Tonight's presentation in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
During recent months, it has been Autolite's privilege to salute leading car manufacturer members of the Autolite family and their dealers throughout the world for many years of close association. Car dealers from coast to coast have held open house, and some 30,000 Autolite men and women have visited special automobile showings set up in 26 Autolite plants. This third annual Autolite Family Salute program will be brought to a brilliant close with the opening this coming Wednesday of the famous Easter Parade of Stars automobile show in the Grand Ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City. Here, against a colorful background of thousands of living wildflowers, record-breaking crowds will see latest car models produced by members of the Autolite family. If you are in New York City this week, we cordially invite you to the Easter Parade of Stars Auto Show at the Waldorf. And wherever you live, remember, more than 400 Autolite products are famous throughout the world for outstanding quality and performance. Yes, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite.
And now, Autolite brings back to our Hollywood soundstage Mr. David Niven in Elliot Lewis's presentation of Grand Theft, a story based on fact and well calculated to keep you in suspense.
When one's problems become complex, one must rely on experience to carry one through. A suspicious insurance investigator can only operate on single-track theories. A resourceful insurance appraiser is quite aware of these methods and therefore regards them in the proper light. Naturally, one must be practical and bend all efforts to know where one stands.
Ben.
Well, Maud?
I've been waiting for you, Ben. Mr. Coombs was at the house.
Of course.
He was here yesterday afternoon. I tried to call you to tell you about it, but you weren't in. He spent an hour with Grandmother talking to her.
What did you ask her? What did she say?
I don't know, Ben. You know how she is sometimes. She just won't talk to anybody, no matter what you ask her.
Where were you?
That's just it. I told him she was ill and might not understand him, but he insisted on talking to her alone. There was nothing I could do. It would have looked bad if I'd...
I've got to find out what she told him.
Wait. No, not now. Something's happened to her. Right after Mr. Coombs left. Some sort of shock. The doctor doesn't know what it is. Wait till tonight. Maybe she'll be better then. No, Ben...
Let go. I said I have to see her. Mrs. Mullen? Mrs. Mullen? Granny?
Ben?
Yeah, that's right, Granny. It's me. I want to ask you something, dear. It's important, or I wouldn't have disturbed you.
Is it a nice day, Ben?
Oh, lovely day, dear. Lovely. Mr. Coombs spoke to you yesterday afternoon about that little matter. Do you remember? Do you remember Mr. Coombs, Granny? Granny, tell me, what did he ask you? What did he say?
Mr. Coombs? Oh, Ben, he was very, very nice. He smoked a pipe, like Maud's grandfather. I told him all about the jewelry, the brooch, and the ring, and the necklace. I told him it had been in the family 60 years, Ben, and that I gave it to Maud when she was 21. Is that right, Ben?
Granny, that's exactly right, dear. Did he ask you anything else? Did you tell him anything else?
That was all, Ben. That was all.
No, you go back to sleep, dear. Sorry to have disturbed you.
Ben,
Yes, dear?
there never was any jewelry in this family, Ben. Never.
Of course there was, Granny. Didn't you tell Mr. Coombs all about it?
Yes, I told him. But, oh, Ben, I'm an old woman, and I shouldn't have lied.
No, don't you worry. It's all right. Maud?
Well?
Everything's all right.
What?
I'm telling you, we're in business, Paris and all. Pack your things.
Well, wait, Ben. How is she?
Your grandmother? Oh, my dear girl. We don't have to worry about her anymore. We'll put her in a nice home. Now, pack and smile.
You sure we'll get the money on the claim?
I'm going over to get it now. Now, you finish it off. Of course, there never was any jewelry, even though I assessed some. And there never was any theft, even though one was reported. However, there was a claim that in any adjuster's eyes would, on the evidence of it, appear to be absolutely legitimate.
Oh, glad you came by, Mr. Bentley. I was going to phone you. This'll save time.
That is precisely why I'm here, Mr. Coombs, to save time. When will the Mullins receive their money?
Well, I'm afraid that's something I can't answer, Mr. Bentley.
Mr. Coombs, a valid claim has been placed with the company you represent. And I'm sorry they have so many reservations about honoring it. However, I know something of the workings of insurance companies. I know that you, not the company, are holding it up.
That's quite right.
Why? I understand that you had the effrontery to call on that poor, sick old lady.
Wonderful person. I doubt if many people call on her nowadays. Most of her friends must be dead by now.
I'll tell you why I'm here. Miss Mullen asked me to come. She wants her $18,000, Mr. Coombs. The policy was written. The money is owed. Now, where is it?
Grandmother made a sworn statement. All checks out there.
Oh, you're satisfied then?
Mr. Bentley, I want to tell you something. Now, this is off the record, just between you and me. Now, when I was at your apartment the other day, I couldn't help noticing the stuff on the wall. And I just asked around. You know, some of those paintings in your place are worth $2,000 or $3,000. That's a lot of money, even for a man who gets paid as high as you do. Now, what am I leading up to? Well, just this. Not only the Denver thing, but you worked a case in Dayton, Ohio, a year and a half ago. Praised some things for Midwestern indemnity at the home of some people named Vansing. Do you remember Vansing? Now, 2 days after you'd done your work, the Vansings found out that a diamond ring worth $8,500 was missing from their house.
Now, see
no,
here...
Just let me go on. Similar thing happened in Omaha 3 years ago. Family named Van Cleve reported $6,000 worth of jewelry missing. It happened that you appraised their household goods just a week before. Now, here's one from San Francisco, and there's another one from St. Paul. You see?
You talk as though you expected to find stolen jewelry hanging on the walls of my apartment.
No, but jewelry can be turned into money to buy paintings, can't it? Oh, none of these things are any of my business. Even those nice paintings hanging in your apartment are none of my business. Have nothing at all to do with these people and their $18,000 claim with us.
Now, as you said, Mr. Coombs, all of this has nothing to do with their claim. They want their $18,000, Mr. Coombs. They want it within 24 hours. Do you understand?
Well, that's pretty clear, Mr. Bentley. But you can tell them they're going to be disappointed. You see, it's out of my hands.
What?
I turned the matter over to the Federal District Court. I've asked them to find the insurance company not liable under the policy.
But it take weeks for a hearing.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. And if the court decides against them, Mr. Bentley, the grand jury will have grounds to indict you for an attempted insurance fraud. Oh, that's a pretty rough thing to beat. But now, If I had a statement from you right now, we might consider withdrawing from the court and letting the entire matter drop.
I see.
Well, what do you say, Mr. Bentley? Do you want to make that statement and clear all this up?
Mr. Coombs, I'm due on Long Island at 2 o'clock, an appraisal job for Eastern States Underwriters. They called me this morning. I'm late now.
Then you don't want to make the statement.
Mr. Coombs, I simply wouldn't know what to say. You really do know what to say, but under the circumstances, it would be inadvisable to confide it to Mr. Coombs. 2 words suffice. Get out. What had looked good and promising and Parisian had suddenly turned into an ugly accusation of theft, which was not the case, but which did definitely close the door on $18,000. So, one more crack at the old game. And if you have to, Paris alone.
Would you care for tea or a drink?
Mrs. Prescott, I'm in rather a hurry. Thank you. Some other time.
Oh, you've been so efficient, going from room to room, wandering all over the house. I'll just wager not one single object escaped your eye. Oh, did you happen to notice my daughter's diamond earrings? Aren't they lovely? Her graduation present.
Earrings? Oh, yes. Oh, lovely. Yes, I believe I did notice them. You see, we do have to be very thorough, Mrs. Prescott. You understand that?
No, of course. Tell me, Mr. Bentley, did you see my son's bedroom?
Yes, I believe so. Second door to the right, top of the landing.
Yes. Did you happen to see that little jade vase?
The jade vase? Oh, yes.
Mr. Bentley, I know this is asking for information that should come officially from the insurance company, but what is it worth?
$40.
$40? Oh, dear, and I thought it was worth thousands. I bought it in Hong Kong.
What did you pay for it?
$40? Just goes to show you. Are you sure you won't have any tea or something?
Quite sure. If you'll excuse me. Good day, Mrs. Prescott.
Good day, Mr. Bentley. I do hope you'll come back again someday. I want to talk to you about your work. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hello?
Huh?
Mr. Bentley, this is Detective Ivers.
Central Division, Mr. Bentley.
What is this? Mr. Coombs, have you lost your mind
Your
or
full
something?
name, Chalmers Bentley?
Well, of course it is. He knows that. Say,
Understand your occupation is appraising, that right?
It certainly is. Now, I have a
Just
question.
a minute. I'd like to see that briefcase, Mr. Bentley.
What?
Sorry. I'll put it all back.
You're behind this, Coombs. I dread to think what'll happen when I call my attorneys.
It's just a little idea, Mr. Bentley. I had to risk it.
Nothing in here.
Nothing but a day's work, all unassorted, thanks to you.
It's all right. Mind standing still?
I certainly do. Now, take your hands off me.
I've got authority to search your person, Mr. Bentley. It'll be done sooner or later.
What are you looking for, a gun or something?
We have reason to believe you've taken some jewelry from this home. That's why I looked over the briefcase. That's why I have to search you. Empty your pockets. In the hat. Hold still. Nothing?
Can you finish it downtown?
Now, see here. I've been subjected to just
All
about
right,
enough of
it's
this.
not a necklace or a bracelet. We'd have found it by now. It's something smaller, a ring or a pin, or maybe you just pulled something out of a set. But it's on you somewhere, in your shoe or taped under your arm or somewhere. Come on, now, what did you take this time?
Diamond earrings.
Where are they?
Here. Right under my belt. This would have paid for my passage to Paris. You're very good at your job, Mr. Coombs.
From an expert, that's a real compliment.
Okay, let's get in the car.
Wait. Mr. Coombs.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find out?
Why, I talked to your girlfriend's grandmother.
No, I don't understand. I wanted you to talk to her. She was my ace.
Oh, she told us the right story, Bentley. Your story. It broke that old lady's heart to lie. It just broke it. That's how we found out. I'll bet that old lady never told a lie in her whole life before. A 2-year-old kid would have known she was lying.
Yes, I should have thought of that. You never can trust these beginners. Should have worn my top coat.
Suspense. Presented by Autolite. Tonight's star, Mr. David Niven.
Say, Harlow, just who's eligible to enter the Autolite family charity drawing?
Anyone and everyone, 18 years or over, Hap.
And just what do you have to do, Harlow?
Why, Hap, it's as simple as signing your name and address. In fact, that's all you do. Just visit any Autolite family car dealer showroom, sign your name and address to a registration form, and nothing more. There are no sentences to complete, no puzzles to solve, nothing to try or buy. If you're one of the lucky 25 persons selected, you will name any recognized local or national charity you wish to share in $100,000 in cash. It costs nothing to enter. So give your favorite charity this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to collect thousands. Visit one or all of these car dealers: DeSoto, Hudson, Plymouth, Studebaker, Dodge, Willis, Nash, Packard, Kaiser, or Chrysler. Not much time left, so sign up tomorrow.
Next week, the story of a man whose welcome home party promised little gaiety and many tears, and surely his death. It's called Parole to Panic. Our star, Mr. Broderick Crawford. That's next week on Suspense. Suspense is produced and directed by Elliott Lewis, with music composed by Lucian Morowick and conducted by Lud Gluskin. Grand Theft was written for Suspense by E. Jack Newman. In tonight's story, Mary Jane Croft was heard as Maud, Florence Walcott as grandmother, and Joseph Kearns as Coombs. Featured in the cast were Truda Marson, Paula Winslow, and Vic Perrin.
David Niven may soon be seen in The Love Lottery.
And remember, next week, Mr. Broderick Crawford in Parole to Panic.
This is the CBS Radio Network.
There you go. From 70 years ago, April 5th, 1954, Suspense on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. If you go to my webpage, classicradio.stream, you see a brief write-up on all four of Jack Benny's appearances on Suspense. I should have mentioned that a few moments ago. Might have been a little more relevant, but we hope you will visit for that. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream, to support the program, learn about building a classic radio collection of your own, and you can find our social media links there. And if you'd like to support us, you can buy me a copy, or there's a few things there available for purchase. We'll continue now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, our final in our foreplay of Suspense. This one from April 5th, 1955. John Dehner narrates 0 Hour, starring Isa Ashdown. That'll be next.
Information could be your lifeline to survival during enemy attack. Are you prepared?
4 whole days. How much longer can it rain like this? Bill, is there any news?
I don't know. The road's washed out. I couldn't get to town. Phone working yet?
No, neither is the radio. If only we knew whether the dam's going to hold.
Hey, how about that battery-operated radio of mine in the den? I'll bet that's still working.
Radio has always been a source of quick information during a disaster. However, in case of attack, radio's beams could help guide enemy planes to their target. That's the reason Conelrad, the emergency system of broadcasting, was devised. When you hear the alert signal, tune to these Conelrad frequencies, 640 and 1240 on your regular radio. During a national emergency, all power lines may be cut off. To make sure you receive the necessary information and instructions, keep a battery-operated radio in your family shelter.
For survival information, know these frequencies, 640 and 1240 on your standard radio.
Claudia will be coming up in just a few minutes, but right now, the final episode of Suspense that we have in this foreplay on this Friday. This is an episode called 0 Hour. You're familiar with it, probably, from April 5th, 1955, 69 years ago, the story of the kids spearheading a Martian invasion.
And now, tonight's presentation of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense. Tonight, Suspense brings you a repeat performance of one of the most controversial plays ever presented over your radio. It is called 0 Hour by Ray Bradbury. After the initial performance, a great number of letters were received. Some comments were highly complimentary, and an almost equal number were not. However, because so many of you did write asking to hear this provocative work of fiction again, we present it, and hope that those of you who have not heard it before will write us your opinion. So now, starring Miss Isa Ashdown, here is tonight's suspense play, 0 Hour.
What a game. Such excitement they hadn't known in years. Mink talked earnestly to someone near the rose bush, though no one was there. Then the two little girls, shouting, laughing at each other. Such fun, such tremulous joy. Mink ran into the house all dirt and sweat. For her few years, she was loud and strong and definite. And her mother, Mrs. Morris, peeling vegetables at the sink, watched with amusement as her daughter threw into a sack old pots and tools and things which were relegated to child play.
Oh, my goodness, Mink, what's going on?
Oh, the most exciting game ever, just ever.
Oh?
It's all right, I take these things, Mom.
Well, just don't dent them and it's all right.
Thanks, Mom, we won't. Bye.
All right, dear. Oh, what's the name of the game, dear?
Invasion.
Invasion?
Invasion. And in the garden now, a serious concentration. Mink with an assortment of pots, pans, and wrenches, forks, spoons. And her friend Anna, a little younger, tongue in teeth, taking notes on a pad.
This, and this. What's it say next? Wait a minute, Mink. Well, hurry up. 4, 9, 7, A and B and X. 4, 9, 7, A and B and X. A fork and a string and a hexagonal. A fork and a string and a hexagonal. What do we do next, Mr. Drill?
And then Mink talking to the rosebush again. And to her own satisfaction, at least, receiving some kind of answer which she relayed to Anna.
Triangle. How do you spell it? Oh, any old way, doesn't matter. Now write beam. I haven't got triangle yet. Well, hurry. 0 hours by 5 o'clock. We haven't got all day.
Then time out from invasion for lunch. Mink bolted down the soup and coincidentally crammed a sandwich into her mouth.
Now you slow down, Mink. Whatever's waiting will wait a few minutes longer.
But I can't. Drill's waiting for me.
Drill? Well, that's a peculiar name. Is he a new boy in the neighborhood, dear?
He's new, all right.
Well, I don't think I've ever seen him. Which one is Drill?
Oh, he's just around. You'll make fun. Everybody makes fun. All the kids do.
Well, I don't think that's very nice. Is Drill shy?
Well, yes, in a way. I don't know. I gotta go now, Mama, if we're gonna have the invasion.
Now, you finish your milk, miss. Who's invading what?
Martians invading Earth from up there.
Oh, I see. And, Drill's a Martian?
I think so. He's had a very hard time getting here.
I should imagine.
They couldn't figure out a way to attack Earth. How to get in or something. And Drill says they have to do it by surprise. And even get help from your enemy.
Oh, a fifth column, huh?
Uh-huh. And all this time they haven't been able to figure out how to attack until one day they thought of children.
Well, that was bright of them.
And they thought of how grown-ups are so busy, they never look under rose bushes or on lawns.
Oh, that's where Drill is now, under the rose bush?
Uh-huh, with all his friends, too. And there's something about kids under 11 with imagination. It's real funny to hear Drill talk.
Well, it must be. You better run along out if you want to have your invasion before dark. Oh, and bath tonight. School tomorrow, you know.
Drill says I won't have to take any more baths.
Oh, he does he?
And we can stay up till 10 o'clock.
Well, your friend Mr. Drill had better mind his P's and Q's, or I'm going to call up his mother.
That's just it. Drill says you're dangerous because you don't believe in Martians. Just like you think Drill's a kid. Well, he's not. And they're going to let us run the world when they get in. All of us kids. And I might even be queen.
Well, that's nice, dear. Now run along.
Mom.
What is it, dear?
Mom, when the invasion comes, we'll have to get rid of you and Daddy. But I'll be sure it won't hurt very much.
Well, thanks. Thanks a lot. Hello?
Hello, Mary. How are things in New York?
Oh, Helen, how nice. Are you in town?
Oh, no, I'm in Danbury. I was just thinking of you and thought I'd call.
Oh, it's long distance, though. You shouldn't.
Oh, I can afford 3 minutes. How's Henry?
Fine. And Bill?
Oh, just fine. What about Mink?
Oh, wonderful. Noisier than ever. Oh, she's got a new game now. It's taken the place of hopscotch. Invasion.
Is she playing that, too?
Well, yes. Are yours?
Same thing. Some kind of geometric jacks, I suppose. Isn't it a scream? You know, all the kids their age are playing it up here. Timmy's got a crush on some guy named Drill. I think that's what it is.
Oh, it must be a new password. Mink likes him, too.
Oh, I didn't know it got to New York. Word of mouth, I suppose. You know, kids. Funniest thing, I got a letter from my sister in Boston. She says her kids are playing it, too. It's just sweeping the country.
Well, I wonder where they learned it.
Don't ask me. All I know is what Timmy told me at lunch. 0 hours at 5 o'clock.
When?
Today. That's when the invasion's going to be. Oh, these kids and their imagination.
And they talked a little more. Schoolgirl friends. Casual woman talk. But Mrs. Morris was thoughtful. She was thinking of other things, of adults, of children with imagination, rose bushes, dimensions. She thought of how much she had forgotten about being a child, and she wondered about Mink and all the kids who were at that moment playing Invasion.
And a kiss for Mink.
I will, and to Bill and the kids.
Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.
An hour drowsed by. It was 3 o'clock. There was an occasional hum inside the coolness of the house as a car passed outside. The street was lined with good, green, and peaceful trees. And all across the city, in other gardens, in other places, children under 11 were excitedly playing a game, talking to rose bushes and grass lawns, trees and shrubs. Even children in apartment houses, high in the air, conferring with potted plants, cactus, and ivy. Mrs. Morris finished her housework and went to the kitchen.
Oh, hello, dear.
Hi, Mom. Can I have a glass of water?
Of course, I'll get it.
Pi r squared, 47. A over 56 to the 7th degree, x t7.
What, dear?
Oh, nothing, Mom.
Oh, here you are.
Thanks.
How are things going? The, invasion.
Oh, that.
Yes, that.
Almost finished. When everything's right, Drill said we should be ready on time.
5 o'clock?
That's right. How'd you know?
Helen called me from Danbury. She says that, Timmy's playing it, too.
Hey, that's keen.
I guess all the kids are, aren't they?
No, not all of them. Not guys like Jimmy Wood and Bob Wilson. They're growing up and they make fun of us. They're worse than parents. They just won't believe in drill. They're so smart just because they're growing up. You'd think they'd know better. They were little only a couple years ago. Well, we'll get rid of them first. Drill says it's okay to kill them first.
Mink, I don't like that kind of talk. Do you hear me? I don't like it at all.
Oh,
now,
Mom.
I mean it. You keep on that way and there'll be no more playing. You'll have to tell Anna to go home, and you'll stay inside until bedtime.
I'm sorry.
Well, I should think so.
Thanks for the water, Mom.
Mink,
Yes, Ma?
what did those numbers mean?
What numbers?
Those numbers you were saying to yourself before.
Oh, that. They're the things we have to do to get Drill and his friends out. That's all.
Look, dear, why don't you and Anna go down to the drugstore and get some ice cream? You don't even have to use your allowance. I'll pay for it.
Haven't got time, Mom. Thanks.
Well, I'd never believe I'd hear you say that.
I gotta go now, Mom.
Oh, wait a minute. Mink, I want you to tell me the truth. What is this invasion silliness?
It isn't silly. It's just a game, that's all. Mom, we're just playing an invasion. Excuse me, I gotta get back now. I'll see you later.
It was a game called Invasion. Mrs. Morris's little girl, Mink, was playing it. So was Mink's friend Anna and all the other children under 11. It was called Invasion, and the 0 hour was to be at 5 o'clock. Mrs. Morris was disturbed. She wasn't sure why, but there was something about parents shutting ears and eyes to what was happening. And because she was disturbed, she did something she didn't usually do. She called her husband at the office.
Hello, dear.
Oh, hello, Henry. I'm sorry to bother you, but Miss Maxon said you weren't busy.
Oh, not too. I should be able to get home early today. Everything all right?
Yes.
You all right?
I'm fine.
Mink?
Oh, she's... Henry?
What?
Oh, nothing. I just wanted to talk to you for a minute. That's all.
Listen, are you sure you're all right?
Oh, yes.
Mink been getting on your nerves?
Not really.
Well, you tell her to behave, or when I come home, she and I are going to have a talk. As a matter of fact, she's been a little fresh lately, and I don't think it's good.
Well, she's playing outside. She's fine.
Honey, is something wrong?
Why, no, I told you I was just thinking about you and wanted to talk, that's all. Nothing wrong with that.
Not a thing.
You go back to your work, dear. I'll see you soon.
All right.
What time do you think you'll be home?
Oh, about 5, maybe a little earlier.
5. Oh.
Hey, what? Come on, what?
Well, I was just thinking. Nothing really, just Mink and you and me. Goodbye, dear.
You are okay, aren't you?
Yes, I'm fine. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Another hour passed, and it was 4:30. The day began to wane. The sun lowered in the peaceful blue sky. Shadows lengthened on the green lawn. Outside it was quiet, the two little girls more intent than ever upon their endless movement of design and pattern with the implements before them. Mrs. Morris watched from the window, and she had never known Mink to have such powers of concentration. She had turned on the radio and sat drinking a cup of coffee and turned over her thoughts.
Children. Children love and hate side by side. Sometimes children love you and hate you all in half a second. Strange children. Do they ever forget or forgive the whippings and the harsh, strict words of command? I wonder. How can you forget or forgive those over and above you? Those tall, silly dictators. Those parents.
Mom!
Oh, what is it, dear?
Have we got a piece of lead pipe and a hammer?
Well, I don't know. They might be in the garage. What do you want them for?
We just need them.
Well, if you tell me what for, dear, maybe I can...
Thanks, Mom.
Is something wrong?
Drill's stuck halfway. If we could get him all the way through, it'd be easier. Then all the others could come through after him.
Well, can I help?
Thanks, Mom. I can fix it.
You better get through, Mink. I want you to take your bath before your father comes home.
All right.
Now, he's coming home early. And, Mink, Mink!
Mink had disappeared behind the shrubs, and Mrs. Morris knew it was ridiculous to make an issue of it. Besides, what was the issue? Invasion? Drill? 0 hour? Unaccountably, a cool breeze came up, and although normally for that time of year it would have been a relief, Mrs. Morris felt a chill. She closed the window. Time passed. A curious, waiting silence came upon the street, deepening. Then from the living room, Mrs. Morris heard... "5 o'clock. 0 hour. 0 hour. It had come, and now it had gone. But was the clock right? And Mrs. Morris, knowing how foolish it was, knowing it, went to the phone and dialed.
Silly. It's silly.
When you hear the tone, the time will be exactly 4:54 and 20 seconds.
"4:54 and 20 seconds. And Mrs. Morris knew that it wasn't as silly as she had thought, because it wasn't 5 o'clock yet. Not 0 hour yet. Then the car drove up into the driveway.
Hi, Meek. How's it going? Hi, Anna.
Hi, Daddy. Bye, Mr. Morris.
Got a kiss for your old man?
Haven't got time now, Daddy.
Well, that's a nice thing. What are you doing?
We're playing Invasion.
Oh, swell. Your mother in the house?
Uh-huh.
Okay, be good.
I will. 0 hour in a few minutes, Daddy.
All right, I'll be ready.
Mrs. Morris heard him chuckle. Then he stepped up the walk to the front door.
Mary?
I'm in the living room, dear.
Oh, hi. Our daughter didn't have time for a kiss. How about you?
A hard day?
Not particularly.
Would you like a cocktail?
Oh, you read my mind.
Martini?
Perfect. Anything exciting happened today?
No. Oh, Helen called.
Oh.
From Danbury. I told her she was crazy, but she just felt like calling.
Like you calling me this afternoon crazy, huh? Hey, what was that all about?
Well, I told you. I just wanted to.
Hey, incidentally, what's this new game the kids are playing? Invasion. That's a nice, depressing thought. Is she all right? Come to think of it, she looked kind of funny.
She's all right. What's the time, Henry?
A couple of minutes after 5. Why?
No, the clock's wrong. By your watch.
Oh, I've got 2 minutes, too. I'm probably slow. You got something on the stove?
No, I just wondered.
Honey. Hey, look at me. What's the matter?
Nothing, really.
No,
really.
Mink's been up to something.
No, of course
Then
not.
what?
I guess I'm a little tired, upset, that's all.
You want to go out for dinner?
Oh, no, I've got a steak here.
I'll tell you what, I'll barbecue it. How'll that be?
Oh, fine. What was that?
What?
Well, I thought I heard something.
Well, I didn't.
I must have been imagining it.
Hey, you are jumpy. Why don't you have a drink? It'll do you good.
No, I don't want one. What's the time?
Mary, what is this? Now, I mean it. Something's wrong, and I want to know.
Oh, it's silly. It's so silly. I'm on edge, that's all.
Mary.
I am.
I don't like this. That kid's done something, hasn't she? I'm going to get her in.
No, Henry, please, don't. She hasn't. It's nothing at all. I just...
What's that?
I don't know.
Those kids haven't got anything dangerous out there, have they? I noticed a lot of junk lying around.
I thought it was a game. She wouldn't have done it herself. They made her do it.
What the devil?
Oh, maybe you better go out and tell them to stop playing now. It's after 5. You tell Mink to put off the invasion until tomorrow. Tell her.
It is coming from outside. What are they up to? I'd better take a look. Mink! Mink! Good Lord! Bombs! Bombs! They're bombing!
No, it's upstairs. I know it is. In the attic. That's where it is.
Mary! Mary, it is not up there! Mary!
He ran after her, confused, not a little frightened. She seemed to know something.
In the attic. That's where it is.
Her mind had worked that quickly. Any excuse to get him away from the outside, to get him upstairs to the attic in time. And outside there were more explosions, and they could hear the children screaming with delight.
It is not in the attic, it's outside. Mink's out there. What's the matter with you?
No. I'll show you. Hurry! Get inside, quick. Now we're safe until tonight.
Are you crazy? Why did you throw that key away?
Oh, maybe we can sneak out later. Maybe we can escape.
For heaven's sake, the kid's out there. Do you want her to get killed?
Oh, you don't know. You don't. We've got to stay here. We've got to. It's horrible. We've got to. You've got to stay here with me.
At this point, I don't know how the devil I can get out. Where's that light?
Oh, be quiet. Please, be quiet. They'll hear us. They'll find us. Oh, Henry, please.
Well, who's going to answer the telephone? There's that noise again. It's in this house. Mary, what is this? Mary, what's happening? You know, now answer me. Stop it, Mary, stop it. Somebody's downstairs. Who's down there? Who?
Oh, no. Oh, hush. Please be quiet. They might go away. Please.
And between his wife's terror and the electric humming from below, Mr. Morris felt a great fear. They trembled together in silence in the attic, Mr. and Mrs. Morris, parents of the little girl. Then they heard steps coming up the stairs, and a voice.
Mommy, Daddy, where are you?
And a queer, cold light became visible under the door crack. A strange odor and the alien sound of eagerness in Mink's voice was almost more than they could bear. Each wanted to scream.
Mommy, Daddy.
And another sound. And the attic lock melted. Mink. Mink with bright little eyes and tousled hair peered inside. And behind her, tall, wavering blue shadows. Frightful shadows.
Suspense, in which Miss Isa Ashdown starred in tonight's presentation of 0 Hour. Next week, Suspense will bring you the story of a bomb and the man who carried it to its ultimate destination. We call it the Lunch Kit. Be sure to listen to Lunch Kit next week on Suspense. Suspense is produced and directed by Anthony Ellis. Tonight's script was written by Ray Bradbury and adapted by Mr. Ellis. The music was composed by Leith Stevens and Lucian Morwick and conducted by Wilbur Hatch. Featured in the cast were Parley Bear, Paula Winslow, Eve McVeigh, John Dehner, and Beverly Hanley. Sound patterns were by Bill James and Ray Kemper.
This is the CBS Radio Network.
"69 years ago, April 5th, 1955, Suspense here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Tomorrow, Bob Hope, Monty Woolley is the Magnificent Montague, Jack Benny, the CBS Radio Workshop with Vincent Price in Speaking of Cinderella, and Claudia. That's all coming up tomorrow. But next, we will check again with Claudia.
Survival in the nuclear age is a personal responsibility. Are you prepared?
Mommy! Mommy! Mommy, I fell down and cut my arm. Look.
Now, Johnny, you sit right here. I'll get the first aid kit and fix your arm. Lucky for us, I listened to some good advice and packed all the first aid items in one box. It comes in handy for emergencies like this.
Right you are, Mother. In the day-to-day emergencies or great national disasters, preparedness pays off. Take the first step today.
Assemble all the necessary medicines, bandages, a few extra towels, baking soda, safety pins, and razor blades. Wrap them in a moisture-proof covering and place in an easily carried box. It's a good idea to store your first aid kit in the home shelter, so no matter what happens, from Johnny's cut to a nuclear attack, you and your family will be ready.
Remember, a strong defense begins with a prepared family and ends with a protected nation.
Be prepared. Assemble your emergency first aid kit today.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, let's step away from the chills and thrills of radio's outstanding theater of thrills and move to something simpler and much more pleasant. An episode of Claudia from 76 years ago, April 5th, 1948.
Your Coca-Cola bottler presents Claudia, based on the play and novels by Rose Franken. Brought to you, transcribed Monday through Friday, by your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. Relax, and while you're listening, refresh yourself. Have a Coke. And now, Claudia.
Dum 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 dum. David, you nearly dressed yet?
I will be in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
You look lovely dressed in a lamb's tail.
Now, before I go in to shave, you'd better tell me what it is you want me to do.
How'd you know I wanted you to do?
I've been your husband long enough.
Then please pull the sofa away from the wall so I can mop up the floor behind it.
What?
What's the matter with mopping up behind the sofa?
Now, look, darling. Just because you're interviewing maids today, that doesn't mean that you have
I
to
want the apartment to look all spruced up for when they start coming.
They? But then you won't look as if you needed a maid.
Exactly. No maid these days is going to take a job with a person who doesn't look as if she can't keep her apartment clean herself.
But that's what the maid's for, I thought.
You just don't have any psychology at all. Hey, say, it's getting late.
You mean it's getting early. Must be all of 7:45.
7:45 already? Oh, I'll never get the apartment all cleaned up on time.
What's on time?
8 o'clock.
Oh.
Didn't you read the ad in the paper?
I looked for it, but I couldn't find it.
You couldn't find the ad?
No.
You probably looked in the wrong place. It's a lovely ad. I'd take the job myself.
You may have to.
Now, let me see. Oh, here it is. General houseworker, to be a member of the family, loves children, cats, and dogs, and the country. Call Norton, Plaza 55597, or apply. Then I give our address. Well, how's that? Think we'll get a lot of answers?
No.
No?
No. I understand it's still very difficult to get someone these days. With a child and a cat and a dog.
Seems to me if I were a maid, I'd grab the job. Imagine living in a beautiful house designed by you.
And taking care of a beautiful baby designed by you.
And you. And living in the country. It sounds like a wonderful job.
Well, you ought to know you've had it for a while.
I don't ever want another job, darling.
Don't you even want a raise?
I don't even want shorter hours. I'm very satisfied with the position.
And I'm very satisfied with each and every service you have rendered.
Would you like to prove it, darling?
I would.
Then move that sofa.
Oh, I might have known it. There's a price to pay for everything.
David, what do you think she'll be like?
Who?
The maid.
Oh, she'll probably be very big and very pale with large hands and flat feet.
Flat feet?
Mm.
Will she be young or old?
Oh, betwixt.
That doesn't sound like our maid. Her name ought to be Bridget. Or maybe she's Swedish.
A Swedish girl called Bridget. That sounds very interesting. Well, I'm all through sweeping behind the sofa. I'll push it up against the wall.
If you weren't so busy being an architect, I wouldn't need a maid. She's very considerate, isn't she?
Who?
Who have we been talking about? Our new maid, of course.
Oh,
She's waiting till 8 o'clock to call us up, just like it said in the ad.
that's not very encouraging.
Why isn't it?
Well, it makes me think that maybe there aren't so many maids who are just dying to come and housework in the Norton Zoo.
I'll bet you 20 cents.
Spendthrift.
David, do you think that's one?
It's not 8 o'clock.
Well, that shows how much she wants the job. She couldn't wait.
I'd better get out of here and get dressed.
Hey, how does the room look? How do I look?
Just like the new maid.
Oh, I can't wait to see what she'll be like.
Then answer the door before she changes her mind and goes away.
David, I never interviewed one before. What's it like?
She'll probably interview you, so relax.
I'm relaxed.
Then you'd better answer the door and find out what kind of a maid our maid is. I'm going in the bedroom and peek through the keyhole.
Oh, I wish you were interviewing and I was peeking. David, what'll I say?
Just roll out the red carpet and shout, "Welcome."
She sounds as if she really wants the job. Well, here I go. Keep your fingers crossed.
Darling, take off that apron.
Doesn't matter. She'll understand. Hello. I'm Mrs. Norton.
And I'm Mrs. Brooks.
I'm very glad to meet you. Won't you come in?
Well, I don't mind if I do. But, is it all right if I interview you here?
Interview me? Why, no. No, that's fine. We'll go in the living room.
Well, there's no one home.
Only my husband. He's dressing.
Oh, you're a couple.
Yes, we're married. I hope you don't mind I'm not dressed. I was just dusting up.
Oh, that's perfectly all right. You, get started early, don't you?
So do you.
Well, this is rather an occasion. An ad like yours just doesn't come every day.
Oh, you like the ad? I'm so glad. And, of course, I'm delighted that you like to get started early in the mornings, too, because my husband and I are very early risers.
Yes, that's quite unusual these days.
Is it? Well, as long as you like to get up early and we like to get up early, it doesn't matter about anybody else, does it?
Yes. Well, this room's very nice and clean.
Oh, I just did it very hurriedly. We thorough clean on Wednesdays.
Thorough clean? That sounds very encouraging.
I just can't stand a place that's dusty.
Oh,
Can you?
You really are an exceptional person, Mrs. Norton. But I can't abide with dust either.
Well, then we'll get along beautifully. Do you like children?
Oh, I'm extremely fond of them. But I haven't got any of my own.
Oh, I am sorry. Well, my husband will probably want to see you.
And I, of course, will want to see him.
Of course. Well, now, what have we got left to discuss?
I'd like to know a little about your experience.
Well, I haven't had very much, but...
It's the spirit that counts.
That's what I always say. Besides, my husband and I like simple foods.
Oh, yes, of course, and so do I.
And, salary?
You mean wages?
Yes, of course, wages.
I think we can let that ride for the time being. Let's wait and see how it works out.
Well, that's a perfect idea.
Well, I'm certainly glad I didn't wait until 8 o'clock to call you. You'll probably be besieged. Oh, it's so difficult to find the right person these days. And your ad was so appealing.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll go in and see if my husband is ready.
Would you be ready to start right away?
Immediately. I'll get my husband. I'll be right back.
Well, darling, how is she?
David, she sounds wonderful.
She does?
And you were certainly right. She's interviewing me. I forgot to ask her whether she likes cats and dogs, too.
She must, or she wouldn't have answered the ad.
That's true. And she loved the ad. Say, you know, she doesn't look like a maid at all.
No? Well, what does she look like?
Well, she's about 40 and, like you said, beautifully dressed.
Well, wages are high these days.
Well, don't you want to come in and see her?
Now, let's see. Wait till I put on my tie and coat.
Yes,
I want to make an impression.
I told her all about you. She seemed very pleased about you, too.
Well, you'd better go back in there before she changes her mind about taking the job.
Oh, darling, I can hardly believe it. Just think we have a new maid, and a wonderful one, and on the first try.
Kiss the Blarney Stone and skadoodle.
Goodbye, Blarney Stone. Mrs. Brooks, my husband will be right out.
Well, there's really no need. I'm sure he'll be fine, and I'm completely satisfied with you. Your attitude is what pleases me most.
My attitude? Well, if you don't mind, Mrs. Brooks, I'd like to say the same thing for you.
Well, it's nice of you. Of course, you're very young and somewhat inexperienced, but we'll manage.
Oh, I do hope so. Mrs. Brooks, I hope you won't think I'm impertinent, but you see, my husband and I sort of like to know a little more about the people who...
Yes, and so do I. But you know, somehow from the very first moment I met you, I've been thinking... How shall I put it? But I've been thinking that, well, you're not exactly the type one finds doing housework.
Oh, I don't mind. I was just doing a little dusting around before you came. Well, now it's all settled?
Yes, and I know I'll be very pleased with you and your husband.
Oh, David, this is Mrs. Brooks.
Oh, glad to meet you, Mrs. Brooks.
Good morning, Mr. Norton.
My wife tells me she's very pleased with what you told her.
That's nice. And I'm very pleased with what I've seen of your wife. Oh, by the way, I was just wondering, have you any references?
References?
What did you say, Mrs. Brooks?
Oh, of course, references aren't important. I still say it's the spirit.
Now, isn't that nice, David?
Well, now, here's my card.
Oh, thank you.
And I won't take up any more of your time, and, well, until Saturday, goodbye.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Till Saturday, then.
And thank you for coming.
Well, of course, I'm not really accustomed to going out for interviewing, but, oh, well, you know how things are these days. One does so many things differently.
David, isn't she wonderful?
I'm not sure. It sounded to me as if she were interviewing us.
That's what you said would happen.
I know, but, well, not so seriously.
David, don't look a gift made in the mouth. Just thank your lucky stars. Oh, it's 8 o'clock. There's another one. David, just tell her the position is taken.
Hello. Yes, this is it. Have we gotten a job yet? What was that you said? Have we found it? Well, I think you've made a mistake. I think you have the wrong number. Darling, get that newspaper.
David, what's the matter? Look, here it is.
I thought so.
What?
Our ad's in the wrong column. It's in the jobs wanted column, not in the help wanted column.
That means that...
Mrs. Brooks was interviewing us. She thought we wanted the job.
David, oh no. Then we haven't got a maid after all. And she seems so perfect.
And Mrs. Brooks hasn't got a couple after all either. And we seem so perfect. We'll have to call her.
You better answer that.
And you'd better answer that.
We'd better not answer either. We're a couple of false pretenses.
They'll be ringing all day long.
And so many more people want maids than there are maids that want people.
Wait a minute, darling. If a good enough job comes along, maybe we ought to take it.
And maybe you better answer that phone. Oh, and when you're through with the telephone, darling, will you please answer the door?
Suppose the bell rang right this minute and unexpected guest popped in. Would you be in a position to greet them as hospitably as you'd like? If there's a case of Coca-Cola in the house, you've no need to worry. Whether the young people bring their friends home or your own companions drop over for an hour or an evening, if there's plenty of Coke on ice, everyone can enjoy the pause that refreshes.
You know, Mr. King, I was completely taken in by Mrs. Norton.
And she was by you, Mrs. Brooks.
But I don't envy her. Her phones are going to be ringing like mad all day long.
Well, Claudia won't mind too much. She just loves to answer the phone.
Name me the woman who doesn't.
And tomorrow she gets her big chance.
Oh, indeed. How?
Well, it seems that Mr. Carrington telephones from Chicago, and the papers David needs are locked in the safe. You know how safe combinations are, so Claudia and...
Papers? What papers?
What papers? Well, I wish I knew. But I suppose I'll find out tomorrow.
And I will, too. Goodbye, Mr. King.
Goodbye, Mrs. Brooks, and I hope you find that maid you're looking for. As I was about to say, every day, Monday through Friday, Claudia comes to you transcribed with the best wishes of your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. So listen again tomorrow at the same time. And now this is Joe King saying au revoir.
And remember, whoever you are, whatever you do, wherever you may be, when you think of refreshment, think of Coca-Cola. For Coca-Cola makes any pause the pause that refreshes. And ice-cold Coca-Cola is everywhere. These broadcasts are adapted for radio by Manya and Roger Starr, and the entire production is supervised and directed by William Brown Maloney. And now, here's a word from your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola.
I'm not your Coca-Cola man, although I will take one of those nice ones in a glass bottle. It's made with sugar. Shame they have to come from Mexico, but, they're delicious. 76 years ago, and yes, I still prefer my Dr. Pepper, thank you very much, especially the ones from Waco, made with sugar. 76 years ago, April 5th, 1948, Claudia here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Tomorrow, comedy with Bob Hope. Monty Woolley is the Magnificent Montague. Jack Benny and the CBS Radio Workshop with Vincent Price and Speaking of Cinderella, and another episode of Claudia. We'll see what's in the safe. That'll be tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, and we visit our webpage, classicradio.stream. Have yourself a great Friday and a great weekend ahead. Classic Radio Theater. I'm Wyatt Cox.